Chapter 1502. At the same time Shiman Fafu and Beigong Lioli roared, Western Heaven Holy Palace. Northern Wasteland Demonic Palace. Press forward and create an opportunity. The three rulers roared at the same time, Supreme Cloud. Ask your Palace of 9 Supremes to withdraw from the battle, quickly. Withdraw? Yun Yang pressed his lips together tightly. He understood Dongfang Haoran and the others' thoughts and actions at once. It seemed that the human race had fallen into an unprecedented disadvantage. Their original plan was almost ruined and they could no longer hold their line of defense. The invasion of the demon race and the sea race was almost a foregone conclusion. Under such circumstances, if they all died here, not only would it not help the situation, it would also cause endless trouble. The only way was to preserve the seeds of human combat power and retreat to the continent. They would fight the demon race continuously for a long time to come so that they could make a comeback in the future. Since they had to be preserved, they had to preserve the most talented and the most potential. Right now, the Palace of 9 Supremes was the only one who fulfilled this condition. It had a complete legacy and unlimited potential. Dongfang Haoran and the others believed and were even more confident that as long as the Palace of 9 Supremes existed, the flame of human cultivation would not be cut off. There would be a day when the demon race would be chased out of the bound of universe and even annihilated. Therefore, Dongfang Haoran and the others made a decision in an instant. The 3 celestial palaces would fight to the death here. Even if they had to exhaust their lives, they had to create an opportunity for the Palace of 9 Supremes to withdraw as many of its people as possible. In this way the human race would still have hope in the future. However, Yun Yang could not accept this kindness. How much had the human race sacrificed and prepared for this day's battle? They had even instigated nearly half of the demon race's higher-ups. Could it be that he still had to admit defeat? If the human race admitted defeat now, the first to defect would be the demon emperors. It was true that they had yet to seek revenge, but they had to have hope of doing so. The demon race was about to be established, they could not go against the current. Even if the eagle race maintained their original intentions, the other sovereigns would not continue to run in the dark for the continuation of their race. Yun Yang was especially indignant, extremely indignant. There's still a chance, there must be a chance. There's always a way. Yun Yang's divine edge shone brightly as he executed the 14 styles at the same time. The sea race and demon race within 10,000 feet around him were all cleared. Following that, Yun Yang changed his saber into a sword and reappeared. What harm is there in slaughtering the entire world? With an indomitable sharp whistle, he charged forcefully into Dongfang Haoran's battle circle in the air, crashing right into it. In an instant, the sword light was like a river of stars hanging upside down, beautiful and boundless. Pu piu piu piu. The 17 demon race saints, without exception, were all covered in blood and fell from the sky powerlessly. As Yun Yang's combat power soared, he could already injure high-level saints to a certain extent. Although he could not kill them in one fell swoop, it was not too difficult to make them lose their combat power temporarily. Yun Yang grabbed Dongfang Haoran. There's still a chance. There's no chance. Dongfang Haoran was almost begging. Yun Yang, we can't do this, please retreat. Take it as I'm begging you, preserve some hope for us humans. If we all die here, the human race will be finished. Yun Yang gritted his teeth and said, this is only the beginning. The main forces of the demon race and sea race haven't arrived yet. It's only the seawater that has rushed over, but it won't be able to go far in such a short period of time. It's not only us who have miscalculated, but the demon race and sea race as well. I believe they didn't expect the apocalypse strategy to be so powerful. The subsequent strategy will definitely be different from what we've planned. This is our chance. What we can do now, as long as there's someone to stop them, the few of us with the highest cultivation base will go back immediately. 500 miles away, right in front of the human campsite, move the mountain to block the path. Stop the seawater here. The demon race and sea race can move mountains to store the sea, why can't we humans move mountains to stop the tide? Dongfang Haoran's violent and bloodshot eyes shone. This is feasible. Although it was feasible, both Yun Yang and Dongfang Haoran knew that it was only a temporary measure because the mountain had been moved here in a hurry. The mountain that was moved here in a hurry did not possess the indestructibility of the Crimson Soul Mountain that contained the power of the galaxy. Any demon race saint could destroy it as long as they found a chance to get close. But at this moment, this method had become the most important step to stop the sea race. The demon race was terrifying, but what was even more terrifying was the sea race entering the bound of universe with the tide. As long as the tide could not enter the inland, the crisis of humanity would be alleviated by more than 80%. To ordinary humans, it was the weaker sea race that entered with the tide that was more threatening. Then who's going to stop them? Python 9. Dongfang Haoren howled and charged out from the demon race's encirclement, shouting, Python 9. With a loud bang, Python 9 flew into the air with blood all over his body. What? Our holy land still needs another 2 hours. Please, 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 the entire Tianfa holy land. Python 9 immediately turned his head and shouted, Tianfa holy land. All flying mystical beasts move out. Far away at the Tianfa holy land's campsite, countless flying mystical beasts soared into the sky with a loud bang, quickly covering the sky. Python 9 pointed with a finger and shouted, Children! Blow them up. Blow them up? Yunyang and the rest were shocked. How to blow them up? Only self-destruction. Self-destruction of the mystical beast's body, self-destruction of the mystical beast's soul. Self-destruction of the mystical beast's inner core. Just like the Falcon Emperor, this was the most extreme method. But the result was the destruction of both his body and soul, consigned to eternal damnation, never to be reincarnated. Go quickly, it's just 2 hours. This old man can stop them. Python 9 did not ask anything, directly turning around to block the demon emperor. Long Yutian, come, hand over your life for this old man. His entire body flew out like a bolt of lightning. Yun Yang and Dongfang Haoren did not hesitate, immediately turning around to look for Shimin Fengfu, who was in the midst of a chaotic battle. After explaining the situation, the three of them left immediately. However, when they rushed over to Beigong Liuli, they saw a scene that made everyone's jaws drop. Because the one fighting with Beigong Liuli right now was the Phoenix Emperor. A completely different person from what everyone knew, the Phoenix Emperor. Every part of the Phoenix Emperor's body was glowing with white light. Just by looking at its appearance, it was like a completely different person from before. Beigong Liuli could be said to be risking her life with all her might, but the Phoenix Emperor only had to lift a hand or a foot to beat Beigong Liuli, one of the three rulers of the bounded universe, into a wobbly state. Furthermore, the Phoenix Emperor looked like he had yet to recover from his heavy injuries, so the signs of the two fighting were extremely strange. Beigong Liuli was no longer the Phoenix Emperor's opponent. A casual punch from the Phoenix Emperor could make Beigong Liuli spit blood and send him flying. Beigong Liuli tried to rush forward again, but he was sent flying again by the Phoenix Emperor's kick. Cracking sounds rang out incessantly. In just a short period of time, who knew how many bones in Beigong Liuli's body had already been broken? But Beigong Liuli still refused to relax, not even for a moment. If he let go of the Phoenix Emperor in this state to deal with someone else, there would probably be a large number of casualties. He charged forward again and again, only to be repelled and injured again and again. His situation was getting worse. As the two of them were locked in a stalemate, the Phoenix Emperor's control of his own power became more and more fluid. It was obvious that he was gradually getting used to the sudden surge in his power. Beigong Liuli was anxious and helpless, despair slowly taking over his heart. It was a sense of helplessness that he had already given up his life but could not cause the slightest bit of harm to the target enemy. It made Beigong Liuli break down. If it were not for his Tao heart of protecting the world and saving the people, Beigong Liuli would have been shattered long ago without the Phoenix Emperor's counterattack. Yun Yang and the other two who witnessed the scene were stunned at the same time. Was that Beigong Liuli? Beigong Liuli's cultivation base was not as good as the Phoenix Emperor's, but it should not be too far off. Even if he was not the Phoenix Emperor's opponent, it would not be difficult for him to fight for more than 1,000 moves. If he were to fight with his life on the line, it should not be a problem for him to fight for a few days and nights. But now, he could not even withstand a single blow from the Phoenix Emperor, who did not seem to be in his best condition. What was going on? Was this not a little too terrifying? Don't come over. Beigong Liuli was bleeding from all of his orifices. Seeing Dongfang Haoren and the others approaching, he shouted sternly, "Don't come over." I don't know why, but the Phoenix Emperor's ability has suddenly increased a lot. With our power level we can no longer hurt him, but the more people attacking him, the faster he'll get used to the power, just like how he's using me to practice. If you come over you'll only be digging your own graves. You'll only speed up the fusion process. Don't come over. After I self-destruct, think of something. Beigong Liuli shouted sternly, "Don't come over to help recklessly, the Phoenix Emperor will only benefit." The Phoenix Emperor stood in the air, similarly bleeding from his 7 orifices and covered in wounds. However, his movements were calm, gentle, and graceful. When he saw Yun Yang he chuckled and said, "Supreme Cloud, the battle has just begun and we've already met again. Come, come, let me see what kind of monster you are." Before his words echoed in the air, he suddenly ignored Beigong Lioli's frenzied attack and allowed the latter's palms to land on him like a thunderstorm, producing an earth-shattering rumble. He then extended his right hand lightly and punched at Yunyang from a distance. Yunyang felt suffocated at once. The Phoenix Emperor's fist had yet to reach him, but the pressure of it was already suffocating him. In his shock he struck out with his saber. Boom! The Phoenix Emperor's fist pushed against the divine edge and continued to strike, its power increasing instead of decreasing. Bang! The back of the divine edge was pushed back by the ferocious force and crashed into Yunyang's chest. Yunyang cried out, feeling like his internal organs were on fire as he flew thousands of feet away, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Looking up, he was in disbelief. Was this the Phoenix Emperor? Was this still the Phoenix Emperor? Chapter 1503. How could this be the Phoenix Emperor that he had fought multiple times with? Yunyang had even forgotten the pain in his body as he stared at the Phoenix Emperor in bewilderment. As intelligent as he was, he could not wrap his head around the situation. How is it? Supreme Cloud? The Lord Supreme Cloud who constantly creates miracles and reverses the tide. The Phoenix Emperor uttered each word as if he was learning how to speak. His lips opened and closed slightly as if he was struggling to speak. Are you very surprised and very doubtful? Yunyang's gaze turned from bewilderment to extreme caution as he suddenly hollered, Beigong, step back. What are you doing? Beigong Lioli had decided to fight the Phoenix Emperor with his life by self-detonation. He did not believe that his self-detonation with this world's pinnacle combat power would not be able to shake the Phoenix Emperor. Just as he was about to attack, he heard Yunyang's words and turned to ask with a bloodied face. For teeth fell out when he opened his mouth. The pinnacle of this world, the pinnacle of saints, was actually in such a terrible state. Don't fight him. Don't fight him, no one. Yunyang said loudly, there's a strange power left in his body. It's invincible, but this power is too great. It's far beyond the limits of his physical body. If you fight him, any expert in this world who fights him, no matter how they attack, they'll only help him vent his power. It's the same even if it's a self-detonation attack. It's a power that's far beyond the limits of this world. Step back. Beigong Lioli flew over, his blood flowing like a river. What do we do then? What if we let him attack the other disciples? Aren't we just going to watch as he slaughters us? Yunyang called out to Dongfang Haoran and the rest to retreat. If he could do that, he would have done so long ago. That would force us to attack him with everything we have and stop him. Right now, he can't activate that mutant giant power. He can't even control it slightly. All he can do is move his fists and legs a little. Otherwise, you wouldn't just be injured. Do you think you can still live until now? Is it just because the Phoenix Empress can't control that power? It's just that every time he uses a bit of power, the burden on him increases a bit. This is the same for any opponent, so he won't attack weak practitioners now. Every time he takes the initiative to attack an enemy, the burden on him increases a bit, because he will be unable to withstand the backlash of that powerful power. Moreover, the weaker a practitioner's cultivation is, the more they will be unable to withstand the backlash, causing the backlash to be unable to find a channel to vent, and will only further damage his body. This is a necessary step for a sudden increase in strength, but it is also the most embarrassing moment for him. Yunyang was very familiar with such situations. It was the same every time he leveled up abruptly. However, with Emmy around, he had been progressing step by step, unlike the Phoenix Emperor who became a fatty in one gulp. As for the Phoenix Emperor's current condition, it was obvious that he was suffering from severe indigestion. Dongfang Haoran's eyes shone as he said in a low voice, what you mean is that he can't control his attack force or attack range now. Whether it's us or those with a weaker cultivation base, the attack force will be of the same standard. Those with a weaker cultivation base will be crushed to pieces after taking half of the force, and the remaining 9.5 will be borne by him alone, the kind where he'll be tormented internally and externally. Is that so? Yunyang nodded. That's right. That's why he's intentionally looking for people of our level to fight. Only then can he have a channel to vent his power, allowing the giant power in his body to circulate bit by bit and gradually be used by him. Therefore, ignoring him is the best way to deal with him right now. It's the only way. Let's retreat. Suffocate him to death. Beigong Lioli and Shimen Huanyu looked at each other with an odd expression. Suffocate him to death? There was actually such a way of doing things. As expected, the Phoenix Emperor was enraged when he saw Yunyang and the others retreating. He chased after them step by step, but the further he chased, the further he went. He had torn the space apart to rush over, but the next time he appeared, he was hundreds of miles away. He could not even control the distance accurately in a short amount of time. He really can't control it as he pleases. He's not up to par. Dongfang Haoren and the others were experts in cultivation. Seeing this, Yun Yang's judgment was further confirmed. Yun Yang urged, "We don't have time to lament. Every minute and second now is exchanged with our lives. Hurry up." His heart was full of urgency and danger, just like what he had said. He didn't really let go of the matter regarding the Phoenix Empress. The Phoenix Empress' current situation was just as he had said. She couldn't control her surging power, so it was difficult for her to move. However, as long as she was given some time, sooner or later, there would be a day, or rather, a moment sooner or later, the Phoenix Empress would be able to completely control that power, and then completely grasp it, making it her own. When that time came, it would be the beginning of the true disaster. Looking at the current pinnacle of human combat power, even Yun Yang, who had the highest cultivation base, was not a match for the Phoenix Emperor, let alone the others. When that time came, who would be able to resist the Phoenix? However, this was a matter for the future after all. It was not the most urgent matter at hand. Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu flew through the demon race and Sea Clan's camp like lightning, going back and forth in a massacre. With the two ladies' combat power, they were almost invincible, other than the Dragon Emperor and the Phoenix Emperor. No matter where they went, blood flowed like a river. The Sea Clan in the water and the demon race in the air. Whenever they encountered them, blood and flesh splattered everywhere. The pinnacle combat power of the three heavenly palaces formed an unusually thin line of defense. It was like a giant fishing net, futilely blocking the Sea Clan and the demon race. However, the seawater was all-pervasive and had already drowned the Bloody Soul Mountain. Despite the three heavenly palaces' best efforts, they still could not stop such a long line of defense. After all, there were so many demon race and Sea Clan members. "Attention everyone." Yun Yang's voice reverberated in the air. "All combat power above Saint Lord. No one is allowed to fight the Phoenix Emperor. Retreat immediately if you see him. Retreat immediately if you see him. Don't fight him even if he invades inland." The order came out of the blue. Should the two armies fight and not fight the other party's leader? In spite of this, Yun Yang had said so, resolute and resolute. Thanks to Dongfang Haoren's previous strict order, the human experts in the Bound of Universe obeyed this order unconditionally. There must be a reason why Supreme Cloud did not allow them to fight, so they did not fight. Therefore, no matter where the Phoenix Emperor turned, as long as there were human experts above Saint Lord level, they would retreat immediately to avoid the sharp edge. Then all the human experts who had encountered the Phoenix Emperor, as long as they were not particularly unlucky and killed in a single blow, discovered something strange in shock. The Phoenix Emperor's performance was too abnormal. She attacked very slowly in battle and most of her attacks would miss. Her movements were extremely inflexible. Sometimes, when she wanted to go around the back of the enemy to stop them, she would end up going hundreds of miles away. It was as if she had gone around in circles. If it were not for the large number of human experts dying in the hands of the Phoenix Emperor, everyone would almost think that the Phoenix Emperor was a spy of the human race. However, even if she was a spy, her acting skills were too frightening. What on earth was going on? The demonic wind howled in the distance, covering the sky and the sun. The black mass of demons came riding the demonic wind, covering the sky and earth. The second wave of the demon race had finally arrived. The first wave of the demon race's combat power was stopped by Yun Yang, who had reversed the flow of the water channel with all his might. There were countless casualties and they were utterly defeated. However, the second wave of a larger scale had arrived. Without Yun Yang or the three rulers who were the pinnacle of combat power to resist, how could they stop the invasion? Then, the booming sounds suddenly connected together and exploded continuously. The sound waves were actually louder and louder than the previous one. It was the despairing human experts who had charged into the densely packed crowd of demons and marine clans, turning their bodies, cultivation base, and souls into a shocking explosion. Yun Yang's heart was dripping with blood. The Phoenix Emperor was still fighting in the air. His target was no longer limited to the human race. As long as he seized the opportunity, he would attack the experts below who were strong enough to withstand his attack. With a casual strike of his palm, there would be a large number of casualties. The number of casualties was much higher than the number of demons killed by a Supreme Saint expert's self-detonation. In this relentless battle, the Phoenix Emperor finally released a portion of his energy, and his attacks gradually became more fluid. The process was slow, but the Phoenix Emperor's improvement was seen by those who were observant. Faster. Python 9 roared. He was being chased by the Phoenix Emperor until he had nowhere to go. Yun-Yang tore the space apart and hurried to the human camp. Actually, the seawater had already rushed over. What he could see was a vast ocean, but the depth of the water was only about the height of an adult, so the situation was not too bad. Yun-Yang landed with a loud roar and a thick yellow light shot out from his body. This was the power of thick earth that originated from Supreme Earth, and it exploded. In the past, Yun-Yang had mostly used the method of escaping through the earth, but this time he was gathering the power of thick earth to forcefully create mountains and cut off the flow of water. Yun-Yang had pushed himself to the limit. Not only had he drained all of his mystical qi, he had also poured out the power of the endless divine art. It was as if he had drained the golden goose that laid the golden eggs. Under the shocked gazes of Dongfang Haoren and the others, behind Yun-Yang, a mountain range that stretched for thousands of miles appeared with a soft rumble. This mountain range was 10,000 feet tall, but it was 7,000 miles long. Looking down from above, one could see that this mountain range was shaped like an oval, facing the direction of the Blood Soul Mountain, outflanking it from afar. The distance between the two sides was at most 3,000 to 4,000 miles. More importantly, the seawater had not yet spread to the other side. Faster. Move the mountain. Block both ends. Chapter 1504. Yun-Yang urged repeatedly. His rapid panting and pale face indicated that his condition had fallen to rock bottom. Obviously, the attack just now had drained all of his cultivation base. He was exhausted and could no longer continue. However, the new strategic barrier that Yun-Yang had mentioned earlier had taken shape. It was not just a prototype but a solid foundation. As long as it was used as a foundation, it would be easier to add more bricks and tiles in the future. Dongfang Haoren and the others were overjoyed. They were initially doubtful of Yun-Yang's suggestion, thinking that it was a last-ditch effort, a last resort, but now it seemed to be highly feasible. The three of them tore the void apart and left immediately. Dong Qitian, Shi Wuchen, Ling Xiaozue and the others who were the Palace of Nine Supremes forces, had yet to fight in the camp. Upon Yun-Yang's command they tore the void apart and flew out as well. They went around looking for mountains to move over. The seawater was immediately blocked here. The atmosphere of the battle 100 miles away was getting more and more intense. There were constant sounds of explosions shaking the earth and mountains. Most of them were the self-destruction of human experts, but there were also those of the demon race and sea clan experts. Everyone was fighting for their lives. The demon race's tens of thousands of years of hope, humanity's last barrier. Everyone had their reasons for not retreating. You exchange your life for victory, I exchange my victory for the reproduction of my race. Strictly speaking, their states of mind were about the same. On Yun-Yang's side, the rumbling sounds continued to ring out as well. It was the sound of mountains falling and crashing into the ground. In his deific consciousness space, a sea of pure spiritual qi surged into Yun-Yang's meridians. There were also the medicinal pills refined by Emi, supreme-grade medicinal pills specifically designed to replenish spiritual energy. Yun-Yang opened his mouth and sucked hundreds of them into his mouth. Although Emi had concocted such a large amount of spiritual medicine, it was not appropriate for Yun-Yang to consume so many of them in one go. However, Yun-Yang's cultivation base was already half a step away from the starry sky realm. Although the spiritual medicine Emi had refined was of the highest grade, the effect of a few of them was limited. He could not care less about the aftereffects now that the war was so dangerous. Recovering his ability was the top priority. The intensity of the battle near the old site of the Crimson Soul Mountain had reached an unimaginable and indescribable stage. Members of the Palace of Nine Supremes, stand on the hill. Be ready to fight at any time. Do not attack without the order to fight. He wanted to see how his seniors fought. Cultivation is not equivalent to combat experience. Your experience is far from enough. You have to see clearly how this prosperous world came to be, and what is protecting it. Yun-Yang had recovered a little of his energy and immediately issued his first order, informing the entire Palace of Nine Supremes. Tens of thousands of Palace of Nine Supremes disciples leaped onto the newly raised hilltop, their eyes fixed on the rising dust and smoke in the distance and the incessant cries of agony. Hundreds of miles away they could still see the ghastly red on the other side. This is the boundless secular world. This is the light of the homes. This is the price of peace. Yun-Yang's voice was low. I can clearly tell you that the first wave of seniors from the three great heavenly palaces has a total of 2.7 million people. It's only been an hour since the battle started, but now, 2,700,000. Yun-Yang's Adam's apple bobbed. Those who survived at most won't exceed 700,000. The first line of defense could fall at any time. Those who can retreat and return to the second line of defense will only be Saint Lords and experts above the Supreme Saint level. As for those below the Supreme Saint level, I'm afraid even a Supreme Saint expert may not be able to hold on for long in such a fierce battle. The Holy Land of Tianfa has deployed hundreds of millions of soldiers for the second line of defense. That's a lot, isn't it? But I want to tell you, compared to the experts of the demon race and the Sea Clan, this force is still far from enough. This is a long line of defense that stretches for tens of thousands of miles. Battles are happening everywhere. People are dying. People are dying everywhere. This battle will not end until all the demon race is killed. If the Sea Clan is not killed, the sea will still drown the continent. And if we, the Guardians, are not killed... Yun Yang's voice grew louder. None of the demon race and the Sea Clan can enter. The faces of Yun Xiaoxin and the others were glowing. Their eyes were shining inexplicably. Once the order to enter the battle is given, it will be your turn to fight. Maybe you will die, maybe you will be crippled, or maybe you will survive, Yin Yang said softly. Take a good look at this continent, the continent behind you, for the last time. Remember what you see and what you can see. This place is under our protection. If there is a next life, I want to be born on this continent, born as a human. For mankind, fight to the end. For mankind, fight to the end. All the disciples of the Palace of Nine Supremes raised their fists and shouted. The rumbling sound stopped and the mountain ranges connected, forming a complete arc. Seawater continued to pour in, but as long as it reached here, it would be blocked. More and more seawater accumulated and became deeper and deeper. However, under Yun Yang's continuous operation, the mountains grew taller and taller, and the power of thick earth continued to strengthen the peaks. For a moment, the situation seemed to have stabilized. But Yun Yang knew that this was still far from enough. How could the seawater, which had been mobilized by all the manpower and resources of the demon race and the Sea Clan of the demon realm, be so easy to deal with? The battle that followed would only be more tragic. At present, the only thing he could do was to strengthen the dam as much as possible while the battlefield had not shifted here. On the other side, the flying mystical beasts of the three heavenly palaces and Tianfa were still fighting desperately to buy time for this side. The battle at the old site of the Blood Soul Mountain had really reached its climax. The seawater had turned the entire battlefield into a vast ocean. When human experts were exhausted from the intense battle, it was inevitable that they would fall into the water and use the force to recover their chi. However, once they landed on the surface of the sea, they would be attacked by many marine mystical beasts, torn apart or devoured. It took a great deal of effort for them to break free. There were also many human martial artists who were ambushed by the sea creatures and never made it out. Those who were luckier and stronger could even self-destruct underwater when they saw that the situation was not looking good. But most of them died silently, buried in the stomachs of the fishes. Not even their bones were left. The seawater was extremely murky, but even in such a murky state, streams of blood kept rising. The first squad of mystical beasts, flying rocks, had arrived on the battlefield. However, they had no intention of fighting normally at all. Under Python 9's command, the human experts nearby retreated hastily, as if they were hiding from something. After that, the first wave of 999 flying rocks lined up in an orderly formation, and they let out shrill cries as they descended ferociously and resolutely. With a loud explosion, the 999 mystical beasts all exploded together. Neatly, they self-destructed together and entered the battle to meet their deaths. This scene caused countless human experts who had just retreated to be deeply moved. Tears flowed uncontrollably from their eyes. Tears streamed down their faces. And this was just the beginning. Squads of rocks lined up neatly just like the first squads. They flew through the air, their postures elegant and graceful. They didn't even spare a glance in the direction of the first squads. They didn't even turn back to look at the place they grew up in. The only thing they let out was a long cry of farewell to this world. After that long cry, it was followed by a violent explosion. The torrent of seawater was almost cut off by their explosions. The entire sea region was dyed a shade of red. However, this shade of red was created by countless Sea Clan and Demon Clan members. Countless corpses of the sea and demon races floated on the surface of the water, but there wasn't a single mystical beast corpse. This was because they had all turned into the brightest stars in the sky. They came and went in a calm and orderly manner. From the initial group of 1,000 to the later groups of 10, they all lined up and directly used their own bodies as weapons, their own lives as sharp blades, to bombard the 3,000 li of sea on the other side. Hundreds of millions of demonic beasts died just like that in their self-detonation attacks. And behind the Shen beast shed there was also the eagle race, crane race, condor race. All the large flying races of this world stood in formation in the sky, waiting for the moment to explode. Throughout the entire process, not a single mystical beast spoke, much less made any noise. All the kings of the mystical beasts led the higher-ranked mystical beasts of their respective races to salute and wait in the sky, to send off their brothers to pay their respects, and to send themselves off. Mangjio stood in the sky, his face contorted. Only tears flowed down his face, but he still shouted with all his might, "Next team!" Even the Phoenix Monarch, whose hands were filled with blood and whose heart was extremely cold, stopped in midair. His face was solemn as he looked over. Originally he only needed to make a move to stop all of this. In fact, the self-destruction of the mystical beasts made it easier for him to control his power. But the Phoenix Emperor did not make a move. His face was still full of respect. The demon race, the human race, and the Shen beasts were recognized as the three great races of the Shenhuang continent. However, the demon race and the human race had vast territories, while the Shen beasts had stayed in a corner of the Tianfa Holy Land for hundreds of millions of years. Their combat strength was ranked below the demon race and the human race. Every 100 years, the Shen beasts would wage a fierce battle with the demon race to protect their realm. They would not rest until death. Even if they were weaker than the demon race, they would still use their bodies to block the attack and their lives to make up for it. Every time the demon race would return in defeat. Strictly speaking, the Phoenix Emperor knew the combat methods of the mystical beasts, but she hadn't seen it with her own eyes. After all, the participants in the Battle of the Barrier Passageway didn't include high-level great demons. Thus, she had only heard of this kind of self-detonation attack. Now he was watching from up close. These Shen beasts, whose cultivation bases weren't high enough to fight head-on, had used such a method. They had used a formation to fuse their collective power into one, and then forcibly increase their power. Then, they had unleashed a heaven-shaking explosion. It truly caused the Phoenix Emperor to be extremely shocked and gasp in amazement. It was to the extent that she couldn't bear to disturb or destroy it. Even if they died in such a heroic way, it was still an honor. Even if they died in such a heroic way, it was still an honor. Chapter 1505. Many of the self-destructing mystical beasts had only just reached the 9th level and above. They had just gained the ability to shapeshift. Their abilities were hovering around this level. The lower they were, they could not control the timing of their self-destruction at all. The higher they were, however, were not more than 2 levels higher. If they were to fight alone against the army of the demon race and the sea race, the only outcome for these Shen beasts would be death. They would be swallowed up and not a single one of them would be able to defeat them. How could the Sea Clan, which could manipulate the seawater and the demons who came riding on the waves, be able to do so without a certain level of foundation? Each of them was a relatively high-level demon. However, Tianfa's mystical beasts used such a method. The number of enemies they brought away was far more than the number they sacrificed. Tens of thousands of mystical rocks charged down, one after the other. The results were remarkable. The Phoenix Sovereign sighed inwardly. Tianfa's sacred beasts had guarded the boundary for so many years on their own. They could do what others could not. Other than the emotional Phoenix Sovereign not interfering, it was not that there were no high-level demon experts stopping them. However, the first wave of the demon race's combat power coincided with Yun Yang's futile attempt to defy the natural order. He had forcefully stopped the tide and returned to counterattack the first wave of the demon race's main force. Although Yun Yang had suffered a great loss, the results were bountiful. Although the second wave of the demon race's combat power had arrived, there were not many of them. The leaders were mostly high-level and intermediate saints. They wanted to stop them, but they were all stopped by human experts such as Ji Lingxi, Shengguan Lingxiu, and Mangjiu. This heroic explosion and the exploding fireworks caused every human expert present to be extremely excited and indescribably shocked. Their only remaining thought was to stop the demon race's experts with all they had, fighting with all their might with tears in their eyes. At least, they had to make the mystical beast's sacrifice more worthwhile. As the Black Rock lineage's self-detonation attack ended, the Crane lineage continued. Similarly, 999 cranes formed a team and charged down without hesitation, calmly diving into the depths of the sea to self-detonate. Later, under Mangjiu's command, 100 teams spread out and charged down at the same time. Such an extreme attack mode, even if they were occasionally stopped, would only explode in the air and perish together with the enemy. From the beginning to the end, not a single mystical beast flinched. Calm and intense, calm and noble. From this day onwards, the name of Tianfa Shen beasts became an unsurpassable legend in the Shenhuang world. On the other side, Yun Yang, who had swallowed a mouthful of medicinal pills, had finally recovered a little. He stood up and ordered, "This newly built line of defense shall not be destroyed. We swear to live and die with this line of defense." Yes. All the nearby human experts puffed out their chests. After giving the order, Yun Yang tore the space apart and hurried back to the battlefield at the old site of the Blood Soul Mountain. A moment later, Dongfang Haoren and the rest rushed over, drenched in sweat. Following Yun Yang's footsteps, they plunged into the battlefield. The foundation of the defense line at the other end of the sea had already been established, temporarily solving the urgent problem. Piling up more would only be a burden. It was better to put more energy into the main battlefield. Right in front of them, a peak saint monarch from the Eastern Celestial Palace was covered in blood. He had been pushed back by a demon race saint expert. His expression was miserable and he looked extremely defeated. "Palace Master. Our people? Our people?" Halfway through her words she couldn't continue. She choked with sobs and tears gushed out of her eyes. "Everyone is dead, all dead," Dongfang Haoren said angrily. "What are you crying for? Go and fight. Kill. Fight." "Yes, Palace Master." The Saint Monarch expert was shocked. He took a deep breath of mystical chi and turned to rush in. Yun Yang appeared beside the Saint Monarch expert in a flash and stuffed a medicinal pill in his hand. He said, "Eat it and fight again." Before the Saint Monarch could thank him, Yun Yang had already disappeared. He was going to find the Demon Emperor. Now both sides said that the ultimate war had begun, but it was still just a battle. Everyone only had one life and it was not certain who was afraid of who. They would just fight. The real threat to the humans was the flood. The seawater was a huge, pervasive hidden danger. Even if the humans won, as long as a portion of the sea race's manpower entered the bound of universe with the water, it would be a huge problem that would be difficult to stop. To solve this problem, only the Oceanic Suppressing Divine Staff could be used. Only the Oceanic Suppressing Divine Staff's ability to suppress the sea could completely solve this problem. Yun Yang entered the battle again. His divine edge rained down on the enemies like a thunderstorm, killing thousands of sea-race demonic beasts in an instant. Yun Yang did not hold back after his successful strike. He spun and soared into the sky, killing countless demonic beasts along the way. When he reached the sky and looked afar, he saw Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu going on a killing spree. There were not many experts from the demon race surrounding the two ladies. There were only layers of demonic beasts that were slaughtered by the two ladies like tigers in a flock of sheep. The demon race and the sea race were naturally unwilling to let the two ladies slaughter their own combat power. More than 20 demon saints gave up on the other enemies and focused on Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu. Although they could not cause direct damage to the two ladies with their saint-level recovery ability, they could ensure that they would not be killed or crippled. When they saw the demon race experts being chased by the two ladies, they went forward to interfere. It was a pity that this tactic was no longer new. The demon race experts had probably done the same when they followed Yun Yang to destroy the peaks previously. The two ladies were very clear about their own identities. Why would they bother with opponents that they could not kill? Their current goal was to kill as many demonic beasts as possible. They would not waste their energy on the high-level demon race and the sea race. "If you want to fight us, come and fight us. We're not afraid anyway. We have recoil." Seeing that the two ladies were getting more and more courageous as they fought, there was no one who could withstand a single blow. The 20 saints could only watch helpless. At this time, a violent rumble rang in the sky again. The demon race's third wave of combat power, the main force of the main force, had finally arrived at the main battlefield and charged past the Bloody Soul Mountain. As far as the eye could see, countless demon race experts had joined the battle, causing a drastic change in the situation. The three heavenly palaces had been fighting for a full 2 hours. Their casualties had reached an alarming number. It was already difficult to deal with them, and now that the other party had added strong reinforcements, how could they resist? The line of defense collapsed instantly. "Retreat, all of you, retreat!" Dongfang Haoren roared. The surviving combat forces were all experts on his side. Otherwise, they would not have been able to hold out until now. They could not risk their lives recklessly. Countless human experts were fighting desperately in the tide-like horde of demonic beasts. Many of them rose into the sky and turned back quickly. At the same time, the land mystical beasts from the Holy Land of Tianfa, who had been preparing for a long time, entered the battle. They took over the direction of the human defense and fought ferociously. The three juggernauts stood high up in the sky, providing support to the human experts who had retreated. They also began to resist the pursuit of the Demon Emperor, the Ocean Emperor, and the other high-level sages. Finally, with the three of them working together, their might was unparalleled, and they managed to protect most of the human experts. But when they looked closely at the subordinates who had retreated, they all had a miserable expression on their faces. 2,700,000 brothers charged forward. Now, there are less than 200,000 that have retreated alive. Everyone is heavily injured. Suddenly there was a loud explosion. The 400 to 500 human experts who had just finished gathering were smashed into the center by the Phoenix Emperor's crazed punch. With a loud explosion, these 400 to 500 people turned into dust, instantly disappearing without a trace. Their souls were completely destroyed. Among them there was even an initial level saint. The power of a single punch from the Phoenix Emperor was actually this strong. Phoenix Emperor. Dongfang Haoren's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. The Phoenix Emperor turned around and looked at him provocatively. Although his body was still swaying, and his reaction was still slow, and he still could not grasp the size of his attack, but Dongfang Haoren could clearly feel it. The current Phoenix Emperor was much calmer than when he was fighting with Beigong Liuli. He was already gradually getting used to his new strength and he was using it as his own. Perhaps not long from now he would be able to control it freely. What should they do then? Once the Phoenix Emperor's integration was successful, no one on their side would be a match for him. How should they deal with this powerful enemy? At this moment, unexpectedly Shangguan Lingxiu was facing the Demon Emperor head-on. The main force of the demon race was the elites of the Dragon Clan and the Phoenix Clan. The other demon elites such as the Tiger Clan, Panther Clan, Rock Clan, and Crane Clan did not participate in the battle. The combat power of the other clans was much weaker. Even the emperors of the clans were at most high-level saints. Looking at the entire demon race's combat power, the only ones who could suppress Ji Lingxi and Shangguan Lingxiu were the Demon Emperor and the Phoenix Emperor. After all, the two girl states were too unique. The protective mystical light around them was already undefeatable, and the rest of the demons were no match for them in terms of combat power. Even if they did not care about their pride, they would not be able to do so. Only a pinnacle expert who could suppress them head-on could stop their momentum. After all, the Phoenix Emperor had injured Ji Lingxi in a way that no one else could. Therefore, the demon race assumed that the Demon Emperor would be able to kill the two girls. The Demon Emperor was infuriated when he saw the two girls slaughtering the demons mercilessly. The Phoenix Emperor's condition was obviously not right. It was probably because of the light of apocalypse that had entered her body. Even if she wanted to target the two girls, it would be difficult. Naturally, the Demon Emperor had to do it himself. The Demon Emperor's first appearance was the center of attention. In the eyes of the demons and even the humans and mystical beasts, Shangguan Lingxiu was doomed. It was a pity that such a beauty would be lost. What surprised everyone was that not only was Shangguan Lingxiu not defeated immediately when she fought the Demon Emperor head-on, she did not even fall into a disadvantageous position. No matter how the Demon Emperor roared and how domineering he was still being suppressed by Shangguan Lingxiu, unable to turn the situation around. The Demon Emperor, who was known as the unrivaled cultivation base and combat power, was actually no match for Shangguan Lingxiu. The Demon Emperor's arrogant entrance was actually beaten to such a sorry state. Was this a joke? Yunyang rushed over upon hearing the news. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets when he saw the scene. Chapter 1506. Yunyang had once felt the demonic emperor's aura up close. The aura was truly beyond the level of any expert in this world. Even with Yunyang's current cultivation base and ability level, Yunyang thought that he would only have a 30% chance of winning if he were to fight the demonic emperor alone. Indeed, Yunyang thought that he only had a 30% chance of winning. However, the demonic emperor was roaring furiously, but he was being beaten back by Shangguan Lingxiu. Yet, the demonic emperor was proud of his invincibility. He could not bring himself to ask for his subordinates' help when everyone was watching. He could only channel his demonic qi with all his might, trying to salvage the situation. However, what puzzled Yunyang the most was not the fact that the demon emperor was no match for Shangguan Lingxiu but something else. The demon emperor's current appearance was like a different person from the one he had seen the other day. If it were not for the yellow robe he was wearing and the aura that matched his combat power, Yunyang would not have recognized him at all. In the midst of the intense battle, the demonic emperor's face was aging rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. His white hair fluttered, and some of his hair even fell off and flew away as he fought. His face was withered and wrinkled, almost like a dying old man. If he were to transform into a dragon, he would probably be an old, toothless dragon. What exactly was going on? Yun Yang turned to look and realized that the Phoenix Emperor had been keeping his distance. Although he would join in the battle from time to time, he had never come over. He had been keeping his distance from the demonic emperor since the beginning. In fact, he had even stayed out of his sight. Wherever the Phoenix Emperor passed, the demonic race was victorious. However, even when the demonic emperor was in trouble, the Phoenix Emperor and the experts of the Phoenix clan did not seem to see him, only fighting where they were. The more the demonic emperor was in danger, the more the Phoenix clan and the human experts were locked in battle. Judging by the looks of it, they really could not spare a hand to save him. This was something that would have been difficult to notice in a chaotic battlefield where millions of experts were fighting. However, when Yun Yang saw the demonic emperor in such a difficult situation, he instinctively felt that something was amiss. Now that he saw the Phoenix Emperor and the Phoenix clan's abnormal behavior, he realized the problem immediately. As the saying goes, one small clue can reveal the general trend. After thinking about it, he faintly felt that there was probably something unusual about this, right? Yun Yang frowned. On the other side, the Demon King was also very confused. With his level of cultivation, if he still couldn't sense that there was something wrong with his body, he would have lived his life in vain. Ever since the start of the world annihilation strategy, he had never stopped. He tore through space, arranged an army, rushed to the Blood Soul realm, gathered the army, and then immediately set off, crossing thousands of miles to descend upon the battlefield. He felt that he was always at his peak, and he had absolute confidence in his body. That was why he didn't have any doubts about his own condition during this hurried journey. But when he came here and started fighting, he was shocked to find that there was something wrong with him. An indescribable feeling of helplessness caused him to be restricted in all aspects. For example, this human woman in front of him had a high cultivation base and special protective abilities, but her cultivation base was only enhanced by external forces. This naturally led to many moves, many comprehensions, and many attacks to have flaws. These were flaws that could only be eliminated after years of polishing. The Demon Emperor could tell with a single glance. As long as he could grasp any flaw, he was confident that he could kill this woman in an extremely short amount of time. Others might be afraid of the woman's mystical light, but as the demon realm's unrivaled expert, he would not take it too seriously. After all, the Phoenix Emperor had broken through this mystical light once before. The Demon Emperor, who was confident in his offensive power, was more confident that he could succeed with a single strike. However, when he saw the flaw and knew how to break through it, he knew how to attack. The truth was that he was powerless. There were opportunities everywhere, but he could not grasp any of them and missed them all. That was too terrifying. The Demon Emperor was terrified. He, who was known as the unrivaled expert, had stood at the pinnacle for far too long and had been invincible for far too long. Now that he had fallen into such a state, he did not know how to deal with it. He was so terrified that he was out of his wits. Realizing that he could not defeat the enemy and was even on the verge of defeat, he almost wanted to leave. He could not afford to lose this face. He wanted to escape from this battlefield. He wanted to go back and check what had happened to him. What was wrong with his body? As Shangguan Lingxiu's attacks grew fiercer, the Demon Emperor grew more and more panicked. He could clearly sense that his overwhelming, indestructible demonic qi in the past was gradually drying up. Drying up. This was a terrifying thing. To any cultivator, it was an extremely terrifying thing. I'm in the prime of my life, and I have a cultivation base that has surpassed Pinnacle Saint. I'm a half step into the starry sky. As long as my demonic soul is not destroyed, I'm an immortal existence. My demonic qi will only be born endlessly, endless and endless. How could my demonic qi dry up? The Demon Emperor resisted Shangguan Lingxiu's attack with all his might, but he could not evade in time. Whether it was because he was distracted or because he was too weak, he was stabbed in the shoulder by Shangguan Lingxiu's sword. The Demon Emperor could only feel a piercing pain as his protective demonic qi was pierced through, leaving a bloody hole in his shoulder. He had been pierced through? The Spirit Demon Emperor was stunned and retreated 100 feet. He turned his head and looked at his shoulder in disbelief. Even Yun Yang's saber, widely acknowledged as the sharpest in the continent, could not have pierced through his shoulder. What was going on? He tilted his head, the hair on his shoulder falling in front of his eyes. The Demon Emperor was stunned. That snow-white, withered hair, the hair that had no sign of life, was mine? Shocked by the realization, he stood in the air, dumbfounded. Shengguan Lingxiu was not idling. She had a clear understanding of her own capabilities and knew that the demon emperor before her was not an expert that she could match. She could not afford to attack with all her might, so she dared not be distracted. She would not miss the opportunity when her enemy faltered. Only God knew if there would be another chance like this in the future. 17 consecutive slashes struck the demon emperor's left eye, forehead, heart, right chest, dantian, throat, back of his head, temple. So many vital points were all struck. Yes, every single one of them had been struck without a single mistake. Fresh blood splattered everywhere. The demon sovereign seemed to have awoken from a dream, and he let out a series of heart-wrenching screams. He desperately pushed his demonic chi to retreat thousands of feet, and used all his cultivation to recover from his injuries. But just as his body recovered, he staggered and almost fell into the sea below. It was fine that he had not used his pinnacle power, but now that he had used it, the demon emperor's heart sank to the bottom. His life force had truly been drained. Not only was his physical vitality drained, his soul was withering as well. There was only a thin layer of his deific consciousness left as well. The last bit of energy, the last bit of demonic energy, had been used by him to heal his body just now. In other words, there was not a single drop of demonic chi left in his body now. He was completely and utterly exhausted. This was a condition even worse than being out of breath and yuan chi being exhausted. It was so bad that it couldn't be any worse. The demon emperor struggled to stand in the air, his entire body trembling. Suddenly, he turned back as if he had thought of something. Staring at the silhouette that was emitting a blazing white light, he roared with all his might, "Phoenix Emperor!" His voice was trembling. In his roar there was endless fear, terror and disbelief. The Phoenix Emperor seemed to have heard the roar and turned to look at him. His gaze seemed to meet the demon emperor's from afar, but then he started fighting with the human experts beside him. As he moved, he got further and further away from them. Then, with a spatial tear, he disappeared completely. The demon emperor seemed to have understood something. He felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave. His entire body was cold and trembling. He raised his hand. His arm was skinny and there was only a layer of wrinkled skin attached to the bones. It looked like a chicken claw that had not been completely dried. The demon emperor roared and struggled to rise up, revealing his true form in the air. It was supposed to be a majestic golden dragon descending from the heavens, majestic and awe-inspiring. However, what was reflected in the eyes of the people fighting was this old golden dragon. He opened his mouth and roared, and the dragon teeth in his mouth actually fell off. The demon emperor was completely dumbfounded. Even if he was a dragon that had died of old age, his body was still very strong. At least his teeth would still remain on his body and would not fall off on their own. Even if he had been tempered by wind and frost for thousands of years, his teeth would still remain on his body, strong and sharp. But I have not died of old age yet. I'm still in my prime. But why did my teeth fall off on their own? Even his ability to fly in the air was gradually being lost. The demon emperor felt his body falling down like a rock. Emperor! The golden dragon Great Elder and the green dragon Great Elder were in the middle of the battle. When they saw this, they roared in disbelief. The demon emperor fell down in a daze. He had already guessed that this was the doing of the Phoenix Emperor. But how did he do it? What was the reason? He could not figure it out. He could not figure it out. Everything was fine. It had only been 2 days. 2 days ago, no. More accurately speaking, it should be 1.5 days ago. He was still in charge of the world annihilation stratagem. At that time he was still at his peak, invincible. World annihilation stratagem. These 3 words suddenly came to the demon emperor's mind. These 3 words allowed him to regain some of his sanity. He forcefully reverted to his human form and hovered in the air above the sea. The burden of transforming into his true form was too great. His current demonic energy could no longer bear it. With a flash, Shengguan Lingxiu appeared before the demon emperor and raised her long sword. The demon emperor lifted his head abruptly and said to Shengguan Lingxiu with a frown, "Give me some time. I need to sort some things out." The demon emperor's voice was steady yet calm, with a hint of resoluteness that did not allow for rejection. Chapter 1507. Even when he was at the end of his rope, he still had the demeanor of a ruler that could not be profaned. In spite of this, Shengguan Lingxiu was still rather speechless. Even if he was the emperor of the demon clan, both parties were enemies. Mercy to the enemy was cruelty to one's own people. What was more, if the other party's chief or the demon emperor were to be killed, this battle would be advantageous to the bound of universe. I don't have much time left. Give me one last chance to live. The demon emperor was expressionless, his gray eyes fixed on her. Very well. Shengguan Lingxiu was puzzled as well. The person in front of her was the demon emperor, the ruler of the demon race that unified the world. The legendary unrivaled expert. Yet, how could this person not be her opponent? She had been suppressing him the entire time, and as the fight went on, he seemed to have aged as if he was about to die of old age. This development was not normal. What was going on? Shengguan Lingxiu was a person who knew the art of war and was a great general. She paid particular attention to the big picture. If it were Ji Lingxi who was fighting the demon emperor, she would have continued to attack. However, Shengguan Lingxiu was acutely aware that something was amiss, so she did not continue to attack. After all, the demon emperor now was so old that he looked like he was about to fade away. Even though he was once the supreme ruler of the demon race, he was now at the end of his life. He no longer had the power to harm anyone. Perhaps he would die of natural causes if he were to stand for a while longer. Shengguan Lingxiu thought about it and finally decided to stop. At the same time, there was a vague thought in her mind. Perhaps this was the turning point of this battle? Emperor. The dragon saints who were still fighting around them charged over with all their might. The demon emperor and the dragon emperor were the representatives of the dragon clan's confidence, the source of their reverence. They could not be lost. More than 40 dragon saints charged over with an overwhelming force. Countless human experts and mystical beast experts along the way could not stop them at all. Yun Yang could stop them, but he did not move, focusing his attention on the demon emperor instead. In fact, Yun Yang had tacitly agreed to Shengguan Lingxiu's actions. Otherwise, he would have gone over to finish her off. He had also noticed and even confirmed that the demon emperor's current state was extremely lethargic. It was a state where his life force had been depleted to the extreme. Yun Yang had come into contact with too much spiritual qi of vitality, so his knowledge of it was far above anyone else in this world. It was almost impossible to reverse the state of the demon emperor's life force and soul being completely depleted. Unless Yun Yang took out more than 1,000 strands of qi of vitality in one go in addition to Emi's energy, the demon emperor could not die. Forget about Emi, even Yun Yang himself would not be able to overcome 1,000 strands of qi of vitality. To use such a massive amount of resources to save an enemy, and the enemy's boss at that. Was he out of his mind? However, it was because of this understanding that Yun Yang allowed Shengguan Lingxiu to stop. Yun Yang also suddenly felt that this might be a chance to stop the war between the two races. Yun Yang watched the scene in silence. Suddenly he waved his hand and said, "Let them come." The demon emperor lifted his head abruptly and hollered with all his remaining energy, "Don't come over." The dragon saints on the other side were stunned. They looked at Yun Yang in disbelief, then at the demon emperor in unison. "All of you stay where you are and await further orders." The demon emperor sighed softly, his heart softened. A total of 43 sages of the dragon tribe stood in the air, forming a large circle to protect the demon emperor. In this circle there was not only the demon emperor but also Shengguan Lingxiu and Yun Yang who had just joined. As the archenemy, both sides were surrounded by the strongest experts of the demon race and the human race, but they had formed an unusually delicate balance, each minding their own business. The demon emperor lifted his head with effort, his body falling uncontrollably. The exhalation just now had obviously drained some of his remaining energy. He suddenly turned his head and said, "Supreme Cloud, send a dragon over to carry me. I can't fly anymore. I can't fly anymore." These 5 words were like 5 huge hammers that smashed into the ears of all the experts on both sides, smashing into everyone's hearts. "All right." Before Yun Yang could speak, the great elder of the golden dragon had already flown to the demon emperor's side and cried out pitifully, "Your Majesty." He then turned under the demon emperor and turned into a golden dragon that was only several feet long, allowing the demon emperor to sit cross-legged on his body. The demon emperor lowered his head as if he was deep in his memories. Many things that had long been erased from his memory resurfaced at this moment. He murmured, "Where's the Phoenix Emperor? I'm going. Isn't he coming to send me off?" "Summon the Phoenix Emperor." The demon emperor's voice was low but determined. "Tell him that I'm going. But I want to know why." The 10 dragon race sages agreed. Dragon roars sounded and they scurried out in all directions. Clearly they were going to look for the Phoenix Emperor. The demon emperor was going. However, this news could not be publicized. The apocalyptic strategy had just begun, the demon race had just invaded the bound of universe, and the war of the century between humans and demons had just begun. At this time, the demon emperor's sudden death could not be announced. They had gone to find the Phoenix Emperor. The demon emperor regained his composure and sat quietly on the golden dragon's back. He closed his eyes and waited, waiting for someone who was unlikely to return. His expression changed from endless desolation to calm. After all, he was an emperor of a generation. After roughly understanding his current situation, he would not make any unnecessary moves. Since he was destined to die, then the most important thing was to deal with all the unfinished business in the future. His surroundings were still filled with loud cheers and cries of the battlefield. Right in front of him, 300 of the Fox Emperor's personal guards were fighting with the Demon Emperor's 2,000 personal guards. This was a battle to the death between the personal guards, and they would not rest until one of them was dead. Yun Yang had wanted to help, but he was stopped by the Fox Emperors who had just arrived. This is a battle that belongs to them, the final battle. This battle is for their emperor. The outcome of the battle, victory or defeat, life or death, is actually not important. What they care about is this final battle. At the same time, only in a battle like this will they feel that their emperor is still alive. He's still watching them, still leading them. 300 of the Fox Emperor's personal guards were not weak, but they paled in comparison to the Demon Emperor's personal guards. Even if they were willing to die, the difference in their abilities was still diminishing. However, they still cheered and fought. Blood still flowed. Occasionally, the Dragon Emperor's personal guards would self-destruct, but most of them were the Fox Emperor's personal guards. They risked their lives. Fight for our emperor. Ever since the Fox Emperor had left, the 300 Fox Emperor's personal guards had been silent. Even when they went out with Yun Yang to stop the sea race and blow up the sea race's mountain, they had remained silent. When they were free, they would sit in an orderly manner somewhere. They were either cultivating or silently taking out their weapons and carefully wiping them over and over again. It was obvious that they were looking forward to this battle. To avenge their emperor. They had been looking forward to it. This was the greatest and final purpose of their existence in this world. Other than that, they had nothing else to live for. Now, the battle they had been waiting for had finally arrived. Whether they lived or died, they had no regrets. Even in death, their faces were calm. No, it was not accurate to say that they were calm. They were clearly indifferent. Compared to them, the Demon Emperor's personal guards were not at peace. Their emperor was sitting behind them, watching them fight. The emperor who was supposed to dominate the world and be invincible was now so weak. The emperor must have been tricked. The emperor was harmed. The emperor was now at the end of his life. But we can't do anything about it. We accept the battle here to protect the emperor's honor. We can't lose the battle against the other emperor's personal guards. We can't lose. We must threaten the last bit of dignity of the Demon Emperor's personal guards. We still want to avenge the emperor. But who was it that harmed the emperor? For the sake of the Fox Emperor, the Fox Emperor's personal guards viewed the Demon Emperor and even the Demon Emperor's subordinates with deep hatred. They would not rest until they were dead. Even if they died, they were willing to die. But the Demon Emperor's personal guards did not have such a mentality. Their demeanor was completely different and they were at a disadvantage. Originally, the Demon Emperor's personal guards had the advantage in terms of numbers and were at an advantage. They should have been able to suppress the Fox Emperor. But the Fox Emperor's personal guards did not care whether they had the upper hand or the lower hand or the difference in strength. Today's battle was the last battle. The voice of seeking death had already suppressed the Demon Emperor's personal guards. But the Phoenix Empress that the Demon Emperor had been waiting for did not come. After a full 15 minutes, the 300 personal guards of the Fox Emperor had all fallen. 1,300 of the Demon Emperor's 2,000 personal guards had fallen. There were no casualties in this battle. In such a large-scale battle, they only fought each other and did not implicate any side. This was a personal grudge and had nothing to do with anyone or anything else. It was horrifying to the point that it was horrifying to look at. The battle had ended and everyone had yet to regain their senses. Only the word shocking could describe it. The Fox Empress had tears in her eyes as she walked out gently. She kept the remaining corpses of the Fox Emperor's personal guards. Every time she kept a corpse, she would bow deeply. This was the highest form of etiquette. The Empress bowed to her personal guards. This was the highest form of etiquette. The white-haired Demon Emperor sat on the back of the golden dragon. He slowly opened his eyes and smiled bitterly. "Sister-in-law, I believe the Fox Emperor should be satisfied with this result?" The Fox Empress said coldly, "Nine-tailed White is naturally satisfied. With such a subordinate he should be smiling in the underworld. But I do not dare to call you sister-in-law. I will return you to you." The Demon Emperor nodded his head slowly. His defeated face revealed a bitter smile. "I know that I have no right or position to call you that. Later when I see Nine-Tailed White, I will personally apologize to him. I still owe him an apology. Chapter 1508. The Fox Empress harumphed coldly, filled with disdain. However, when she saw the Demon Emperor's withered face, she did not say anything worse. However, after she put away all the corpses of her personal guards, she turned around and left without looking back. She only left behind one sentence. I have done all that I have done for the Fox clan. Next, it's time for us to find a place to live with a clear conscience. We cannot stay in the Demon Clan any longer. From now on, we will no longer be the Demon Clan. After saying that, he swaggered off. The next moment, the Fox Empress and the Cat Queen appeared on the battlefield again. The swords in their hands shone with a cold light, and they started a massacre. And the sword light was directed at the Demon Clan. A silver dragon saint shouted, "Fox Empress and Cat Queen, you were born a demon, and you have been a demon all your life. Why are you turning against us?" The Fox Empress and the Cat Queen laughed coldly. When you forced 9 lives and 9 tails to their deaths, did you ever think that they were also demons? Demons who had sacrificed so much for the Demon Clan. With a few cold laughs, he had already disappeared without a trace. However, he had already changed directions and began his massacre once more. The Demon Emperor sat on the back of the golden dragon and looked at the gray sky in a daze. He muttered, "Is the Phoenix Emperor not here yet?" The few demon race sages and dragon race experts nearby were confused when they heard that. They clearly did not realize what had happened. But the Phoenix Emperor had not come yet, and it was even after the Demon Emperor had sent out a special summon. Something was not right. Maybe the Phoenix Emperor is in a tough battle and is being held back by the human experts. He cannot come. When the Golden Dragon Grand Elder said this, even he did not believe it. In the world, if the Phoenix Emperor wanted to leave, who could hold him back? Not a single one. The fact that he had not come after such a long time could only mean one thing. He did not want to come. That was all. The Demon Emperor suddenly laughed out loud. He laughed so hard that he could not catch his breath, but he did not stop laughing. During this short period of waiting, his life force did not improve because he had stopped fighting. Instead, it continued to decline. Now he was truly on the verge of exhaustion. It was a state where his life force was completely exhausted, with only a tiny bit left. He could die at any moment. But correspondingly, his mind was unusually clear, unprecedentedly clear. His memory was especially good. It was to the extent that practically all the major and minor events in his life had been recalled by him. Scene after scene rose and fell like a white steed flashing past a crevice, and many of the things that were wrong and unreasonable were clearly displayed before his eyes, as clear as a blazing fire. The Demon Emperor smiled bitterly. He was laughing at himself. Why had his brain never worked so well before? The past flashed past his mind like a clear stream, quietly flowing by. All the mysteries, tricks, and illogicalities had all been answered at this moment. Brother Feng. As expected of the wisest person in the world. The Demon Emperor heaved a long sigh. His voice was filled with admiration, without the slightest bit of resentment. I, the leader of the demon race, Dragon Emperor Yulong Tian, have been tricked by you my entire life and never had the slightest suspicion. It's my foolishness, but it's my honor. The Demon Emperor guffawed until he coughed blood. Send another order, ask him to come here. The Demon Emperor said, tell him that I don't hate him, not at all. I just want to talk to him now and pour my heart out. The few dragon saints left immediately to search for the Phoenix Emperor. The Demon Emperor looked at Yun Yang and said faintly, Lord Supreme Cloud, are you interested in listening to my life? Yun Yang smiled and said, of course I'd like to. I'll head over first then, Shengguan Lingxiu said. All right. I'll stay here and chat with your majesty. I'm really curious about your majesty's legendary life, said Yun Yang. Shengguan Lingxiu glanced at him in disdain and rolled her eyes before she left. Was Yun Yang interested in the Demon Emperor's life? Interest my asteriscus. From the Demon Emperor's behavior and Yun Yang's own knowledge of the demon race, he had already guessed about 50 to 60% of the connection between the Dragon Emperor and the Phoenix Emperor. The Dragon Emperor was obviously a shield placed by the Phoenix Emperor. All the good and bad things were shouldered by the Dragon Emperor alone. The Dragon Emperor gained fame while the Phoenix Emperor gained tangible benefits. It was only now that the Dragon Emperor realized the truth. He knew that everything he held in his hands was an illusion. He had been manipulated by the Phoenix Emperor all his life, thinking that they were good friends for life. How could he have known that the Phoenix Emperor had treated him like a tool? In spite of this, Yunyang could not ignore it, and he dared not say that he did not want to listen. Now that the Dragon Emperor was about to die, how could he maximize the benefits of his death? He could even use his death to settle this hopeless battle. Of course, he had to seize the opportunity to build a good relationship. With the Demon Emperor's withdrawal from the battle, almost all the dragon race's combat power slowly gathered here. Without the dragon race, the pinnacle of the demon race, the pressure on the Bound of Universes side was reduced. It was especially so now that the Phoenix Emperor was unwilling to show himself. On the Sea Tribe's side, the Sea Emperor's ability was greatly reduced due to his heavy injuries, and Prime Minister Turtle was dead. It was a leaderless situation, which naturally made the human race's battle line much more secure. Although Yunyang knew that this was only temporary and that the dragon race would still have to participate in the battle once the Demon Emperor died, it was already a great advantage for the humans to be able to temporarily trap almost half of the demon race's high-end combat power here. What the humans lacked now was time. Only by dragging it out until the Tiger Emperor and the rest could the humans have a chance of winning. Therefore, Yunyang hoped that this situation could be maintained for as long as possible. Although doing so would also implicate him, Ji Lingxi, Shengguan Lingxiu, Dongfang Haoren, and the rest were still free and could come to their aid. Having lost the dragon race's hundreds of saints as their high-end opponents, these people were invincible and could greatly reduce the pressure on the human race. Furthermore, Yunyang had overstepped the limit twice. First, he had forcefully assisted the water force to ambush the demon army, and second, he had used his life's energy to accelerate the growth of the mountain range. He had actually suffered a great deal of damage. Now he was just barely holding on. Was it not better to take the opportunity to recover his energy? Therefore, Yunyang really wished that the Demon Emperor could chat with him, the longer the better. If he could chat for 3 to 5 to 7 days, the outcome of this battle might be reversed. The longer he dragged it out, the higher the chances of Emperor Rock and the rest rushing over, and the stronger his side would be. The only threat was the Phoenix Emperor. Although his ability had increased greatly, at least he was not much of a threat at the moment, and his whereabouts were still unknown. Yunyang secretly calculated the current combat power of both sides and was surprised to find that only the Deer Emperor, the Horse Emperor, and the Serpent Emperor were still holding on the side of the Demon race and the Sea race. The Sea race had the advantage in numbers, but the Sea Emperor, their ultimate combat power, was in a half-crippled state. The rest of the Whale King, Shark King, and King Deng were only high-level saints, so they were not a threat. Such a situation was something that Yunyang could not even dream of. The Demon Emperor smiled faintly and opened his eyes. Looking at the fiery battlefield, he said with a smile, "I've been willful all my life, and most of it was for today. I didn't expect to be willful again at such a critical moment." Yunyang, along with the saint experts of the demon race and dragon race, understood what he meant. The Demon Emperor knew very well that he was telling a story here and delaying so many experts from participating in the battle. It was not only detrimental to the demon race's millennium-long plan, but it could also cause a destructive blow. However, he still did it. If he was willful, then so be it. It was the end anyway. If I didn't keep them here, what would you do? Would you still be interested in listening to my rambling? The Demon Emperor asked Yunyang with great interest. Yunyang smiled and said, "I've always thought that your majesty is arbitrary and that your words are the law. It's obvious that your majesty is a sensible person. If your majesty wishes to recall the past, how can there be no price? At the very least, I'll immediately snatch the oceanic divine staff and suppress the sea race. This is my top priority and goal. The Phoenix Emperor is guilty and doesn't dare to come over. With your majesty's current strength, including the surrounding defenses, you can't stop me from snatching the oceanic divine staff or doing anything for me." Yunyang smiled calmly and said, "So, let's benefit each other. After all, it's up to you to decide who will benefit more from this conversation. However, I'm still inclined to listen to your majesty's story." The Demon Emperor shook his head and chuckled. "Is it because I'm lamenting that the Phoenix Emperor is the wisest and that Supreme Cloud is unwilling? Of course, this conversation is beneficial to all of you. Otherwise you wouldn't be here." Yunyang's expression did not change. "It seems that your majesty's mind is extremely clear. However, our situation is still not optimistic." The Demon Emperor said faintly, "That can't be helped. Human beings are too weak, but it's not that you and Dongfang are too weak. Facing the current dire situation, I believe that Supreme Cloud knows what to do. The reason why humans have fallen to this state is all because the Crimson Soul Mountain is too sturdy. It's just that you, the pinnacle of human strength, have protected the ordinary humans so well. Yun-Yang smiled noncommittally and did not speak. The demon race. Every fighting demon knows from birth that the ultimate mission of the demon race is to counterattack the bound of universe. Therefore, every demon race citizen's entire life is a process of survival of the fittest. There's no peace to speak of. Those who can survive are either cunning or strong enough. The demon emperor said tiredly, those who are talented in cultivation are constantly in danger of death since they start cultivating. If they don't become stronger, they'll die. At least in this aspect, they're completely different from you humans. Therefore, once the Crimson Soul Mountain no longer exists, the demon race will have the absolute advantage. It's irreversible. If the Crimson Soul Mountain exists forever, then humans will naturally be at peace. This is also the fundamental reason why we're willing to sacrifice the lives of 20 billion martial artists to carry out the strategy of annihilation. You're only able to live peacefully in the bound of universe because of the favoritism of the gods and rulers. Only you humans don't cherish this gift. What's wrong with us replacing it? Yun-Yang had initially planned to play along and listen to the Demon Emperor's last words. He did not expect the Demon Emperor to be so insistent and talk nonsense. He could not help but ask, why don't we humans cherish it? Chapter 1509. The Demon Emperor sneered. You humans occupy the most suitable place for cultivation. You humans have the body and meridians that are the most suitable for cultivation compared to any other race in this world. You humans have countless cultivation methods passed down by your predecessors that you can cultivate without creating them yourself. But why is your combat power not as great as the demon races? You humans are too lazy. You humans are too lazy. Too greedy for comfort. Since you don't want to improve, why not let us, who are more proactive, replace you? The Demon Emperor spoke with conviction. Wrong. Very wrong. Yun-Yang said faintly, one of the fundamental purposes of us conquering the world is to let our descendants live a more comfortable and smoother life. If every generation is as hard as you, what's the use of us conquering the world? This is not a reason for you to invade. God has never been biased. It seems to give us a comfortable environment, but it also gives us a weak body. It gives you a harsh environment, but it also gives you the ability to hunt. Yun-Yang smiled faintly. Demon Emperor, if these are your last words, I think you don't have to say any more. I'm not interested in listening to this. Perhaps I can lend you a hand and meet the Fox Emperor, the Cat Emperor, and the Eagle Emperor sooner, if you still have the face to see them. The Demon Sovereign was stunned for a moment. After pondering for a long time, he finally laughed again. So I'm still talking to myself, thinking that I'm infallible. The injustice and grievances of our demon clan indeed cannot be told to your human clan. It's natural that you're not interested in listening. Yin-Yang smiled. What's the use of telling you the hatred of the human race? It's useless. The Demon Emperor laughed. Supreme Cloud, do you know that my temper has become exceptionally good at times like this? I even want to talk to you a little longer. Yin-Yang beamed. Sure, I hope to talk to your majesty a little longer too. 3 to 5 days is fine too, I'll accompany you. The Demon Emperor laughed uncontrollably. As he laughed, the Demon Emperor's gaze became lost as he murmured, back then the brothers were all together. He suddenly fell silent. His gaze was distant. Yun-Yang was not impatient. He waited patiently for the Demon Emperor's follow-up. The experts of the demon race had formed a formation spontaneously. It was an oddly shaped formation that spread from top to bottom. From afar it looked like a stairway to heaven. All the participating demon clan experts transformed into their true forms. At a glance, they were neat and tidy, and the scene was solemn and solemn. The entire place was filled with a heavy oppressive atmosphere. The demon sovereign woke up from his deep thoughts and said indifferently, "This is the heaven stairway." Since ancient times, only the demon emperor and demon empress would receive such treatment. Do you understand? Yun-Yang said solemnly. Yun-Yang has unexpectedly received such an honor. Should I say that I'm overwhelmed by the favor? Now that the heaven stairway has been erected, I wonder if your majesty has any unfinished business? From afar, the ocean emperor's angry roar could be heard. During the great battle, at the moment of life and death, your majesty demon emperor, what are you doing? He was too far away and he was being pursued by Ji Lingxi. He had no idea what was happening on the other side. What was worse was that he did not know Ji Lingxi's background at all. He felt that he had targeted a fatal flaw and attacked with all his might, but his current combat power was at most 50% of his pinnacle state. He was still a notch weaker than Ji Lingxi. It looked like he had succeeded in his attack, but the moment the mystical light flashed, he retaliated with an extreme counterattack, dealing a huge blow to the Ocean Emperor. Then he began to be pursued by Ji Lingxi, living in constant fear. Just as he was being pursued to the point where he had nowhere to run and it was getting increasingly difficult for him to cope, he was surprised to see so many experts of the demon race stop fighting and gather together in a concave shape. The Ocean Emperor was furious and cursed aloud. Tens of thousands of lives are being lost every blink of an eye now, but all of you are sitting there as if nothing has happened. Holding a meeting? How could you King trick me like this? The Ocean Emperor had thought that he could take advantage of the ambush to finish off the human's top combat power, but he did not expect his target to possess a special technique. Apart from being ambushed, he had suffered a number of injuries and was being pursued relentlessly by Ji Lingxi. He could not stop complaining. This was only because he had the help of the Sea Clan experts around him that he did not suffer any more serious injuries. If this continued, the Sea Clan would suffer a great loss. What are you demons doing here? The Ocean Emperor roared angrily. To fight. Ji Lingxi darted over like a bolt of lightning, and the pursuit of death continued. The Ocean Emperor retreated step by step, getting further and further away from them. He could not help but panic, foaming at the mouth, but there was nothing he could do. A bunch of B***stars. How could there be such an ally in this world? At the most critical moment, the Demon Emperor had gathered a large number of high-level saints for a meeting and were queuing up. The other leader, the Phoenix Emperor, had disappeared. Then what was the point of launching this apocalypse strategy? Did you send all of my Sea Clan here to die? I've never seen a demon being tricked like this. The Ocean Emperor did not see that Yun Yang was the closest to the Dragon Emperor. Otherwise, he would have suspected that this apocalypse strategy was actually a show that the demon and human clans had teamed up to annihilate the Sea Clan. The Shark King bellowed, shattering jade. Let's kill this woman first. Mobilizing a large group of Sea Clan experts to charge at Ji Lingxi in a suicidal manner, the Shark King was so angry that he was spitting blood. The demon race was really insignificant. What did a bunch of beasts know about strategy? We've already charged over, but you've come up with such a ridiculous plan. *CK. How he wished he could just charge back like a tidal wave. However, under the coordinated attacks of the human experts, the experts on the Sea Emperor's side were pushed further and further away from the demon race. Gradually, they were completely separated from the demon race. Yun Yang narrowed his eyes and said faintly, "Your Majesty seems to be unenthusiastic about this plan all of a sudden?" The Demon Emperor's expression was calm, but his tone was casual. "But you humans are still at an absolute disadvantage, aren't you? There's a saying in the human world that a man's words are kind when he's about to die, and a bird's cry when it's about to die is sorrowful. I wonder if your Majesty has any thoughts or suggestions on this." The dragon race that was arranged into a stairway to heaven glared at Yun Yang, wishing that they could slice Yun Yang into pieces. The Demon Emperor, on the other hand, was calm, not at all offended. He even chuckled softly. As the conversation went on, the Demon Emperor's expression grew darker. Suddenly he plucked a bead off his crown and stuffed it into his mouth. He said with a melancholy smile, "This is the dragon race's heirloom. I thought that I'd never have to use it in this lifetime and planned to pass it on. I didn't expect that I'd have to use it now." As the bead entered his mouth, the Demon Emperor's weak life force surged and grew denser. It seemed that his life force had recovered by at least 30%. Before the Golden Dragon Elder and the others had the time to rejoice, they saw the Demon Emperor's aura gradually weaken again, and it seemed to be going out of control. Yun Yang had suffered too many injuries before this. Whether it was his meridians, divine sense, or life force, they were all damaged due to various reasons. Long illness made the patient a good doctor, and Yun Yang was the one who knew his wounds better. Through this period of close contact, he realized that the Demon Emperor's body was like an extra-large funnel. No matter how much life force was pumped into it, it was futile and could not be stored. Even if Yun Yang were to provide the Demon Emperor with spiritual chi of vitality, it would not solve the root of the problem. As time passed, the Demon Emperor would evaporate completely. In addition, the rate of depletion was unheard of. The Demon Emperor had recovered 30% of his life force after eating this strange pearl. This 30% life force was equivalent to the life force of a high-level sage. However, with the current rate of depletion, it would not take more than 4 hours for the bead to be depleted again. Since the bead was a treasure of heritage, its effect might not be as simple as just replenishing life force. After consuming the bead, the Demon Emperor's energy was greatly restored. Although his life force was still draining rapidly, his dignified aura had recovered a little as well. His eyes that had regained their luster stared at Yin Yang. Supreme Cloud, are you still interested in knowing the history of the demon race's rise and fall? About my love and hatred for so many years? Yin Yang laughed. Of course I am. Chatting with your majesty is a pleasure for me. I believe that no one in the demon race, let alone the human race, has the guts to talk to your majesty like this. The demon emperor smiled, a strange glow on his face as he said, Supreme Cloud is indeed extraordinary. Since Supreme Cloud doesn't give up, come with me. Before his words echoed in the air, he waved his right hand. A holy light flashed, and Yun Yang and the demon emperor disappeared at the same time. The great elder of the golden dragon, the great elder of the silver dragon, the great elder of the black dragon, the great elder of the white dragon, and the great elder of the azure dragon disappeared at the same time. And these 5 great elders of the dragon clan were the most loyal supporters of the demon emperor. Although the people above had disappeared, they were not completely traceless. A strange barrier had appeared at the place where they had disappeared. Yun Yang and the demon emperor were obviously within this barrier. Yun Yang felt his vision blur before he realized that he was already on a lush green grassland. His eyes were filled with green and he looked relaxed and carefree. However, on this vast grassland besides himself, there were 6 other people, including the demon emperor, who were standing a little further away. If it were not for the fact that Yun Yang was certain that the demon emperor was not in a good condition and could die at any time, he would have suspected that the demon emperor was plotting against him. After all, the sudden turn of events was too sudden. In this strange realm, the demon emperor seemed to be in a better state. He stood with his arms behind his back, his face devoid of emotion. It was probably because the vitality provided by the orb that he had consumed previously had not dissipated completely. In addition to the environment and atmosphere of this realm, he looked like a king who had descended upon the world. The demon emperor stared at Yun Yang for a moment and said faintly, "This is the world of my memory." Originally, the memory could only be viewed in the form of images, but the orb that I have consumed is the Dragon Clan's divine orb of Tao. No matter how bad the situation is, it can still save my life. However, even after consuming this orb, it still can't save me from the misfortune of death. Therefore, I've decided to activate its other use, to materialize my memory and let you have a good look at my life. Then I'll entrust some of my unfinished business to you. The demon emperor stared at Yun Yang deeply for a moment. In exchange, I hope that you can promise me one thing. In this entire world, only you can give me some confidence in this matter. Chapter 15:10. Yun Yang asked softly, "But, to kill the Phoenix Emperor?" Hearing the 2 words Phoenix Emperor, the demon emperor's indifferent gaze shone with deep hatred. He gritted his teeth and said, "That's right. Kill him. You killed my best brother in tens of thousands of years." Speaking of the word brother, the demon emperor's tone was filled with indescribable mockery. The 5 great elders of the dragon tribe standing behind the spirit beast king were shocked to the core. Although they knew that the demon emperor was in a terrible state and was nearing the end of his life, they did not know the cause. At most, they had a vague guess that it might be related to the Phoenix Emperor. After all, the Phoenix Emperor was the 2nd most powerful person in the demon race, second only to the demon emperor. As long as there was a possibility, they would not wish for the demon emperor's death to be caused by the Phoenix Emperor. That would be the greatest disaster for the entire demon race. Yun Yang kept quiet for a moment and said, "I need to know the reason. After all, from what I can see, His Majesty did not want to kill the Phoenix Emperor when he summoned him, at least before I came here. He even wanted to entrust the entire demon race to him. Why would there be such a drastic change in such a short period of time? If I don't know the reason, I can't promise anything." The demon emperor glanced at Yun Yang with a strange gaze and finally sighed. "Supreme Cloud, I can finally be sure now, the gap between you and me, the Phoenix Emperor, and wise men like you, is actually so vast. You can really analyze what someone is thinking, saying, and doing based on a gaze, an expression, and a tone of voice, then immediately make the corresponding arrangements and guide the situation to a state that you're happy with, or make other decisions that are beneficial to you. I can't believe that there are people like you in this world." Yun Yang smiled faintly and did not comment. After all, such words were nothing new to the 9 Supremes think tank. He was used to it and did not find it strange. "You're right. If the Phoenix Emperor had answered my summons and given me a reasonable explanation, no matter whether the explanation was true or false, even if I'm dead this time, even if he's the one who killed me, I still wouldn't blame him. Even if I still hate him, want to scold and blame him, but handing the demon race over to him is still the best choice. After all, I still believe that he can lead the demon race to the destination that I expected, or even further than I expected. But he didn't come back. He didn't come this time, but I was still waiting and giving him a chance. I am waiting for a brother to send me on my way when I bid farewell to this world. It doesn't matter if this brother is a real brother or a fake brother. Even if it's all fake, we've still been together for tens of thousands of years. After all, in the eyes of the entire world, the Phoenix Emperor is my best brother. As long as he can give me the last bit of dignity, everything else isn't important. I admit defeat. The Spirit Demon Emperor's face revealed an extremely sorrowful expression. But he still hasn't come back. He hasn't come back again and again. We don't have time to wait for him. We know that he won't come. He will only come back after we die and take over the demon race. If he comes, I'll give it to him. But if he doesn't come, I won't do as he wishes. I'll use my last bit of strength to destroy his wishful thinking. The Spirit Demon Emperor spoke through gritted teeth, but the more he spoke, the calmer his expression became. In the end, his voice was almost indifferent, like water without ripples. However, Yunyang knew that this was a sign that the Spirit Demon Emperor had made up his mind. I'd like to hear the details. Yunyang looked doubtful for the first time. Although I've guessed that the Phoenix Emperor is plotting against your majesty, I'd like to ask your majesty to explain the details. If I hadn't been in close contact with your majesty, it's hard to imagine how your majesty, with your cultivation base and combat ability, ended up in such a state. From the words of your majesty and the Golden Dragon Elder, I can tell that your majesty was still the same as before a day ago, before the apocalyptic ploy was activated. Could this be related to the apocalyptic ploy? The Spirit Demon Emperor took a long look at Yunyang before a self-deprecating smile appeared on his face. I thought that we valued Supreme Cloud very much, but we've still underestimated you. You shouldn't be called Supreme Cloud, you should be called Supreme Wit. Just as you've guessed, everything stems from the apocalyptic ploy. The apocalyptic ploy can be considered a hoax that isn't a hoax. A hoax? A hoax that isn't a hoax? Yunyang, along with the 5 Dragon Elders, could not help but ask. To say that it's a hoax, it should be a plot against me, a plot that deceives me of my life, soul, cultivation base, status, and everything about me. The Spirit Demon Emperor smirked. To say that it isn't a hoax, it's because the apocalyptic ploy really exists and its power is real, even beyond imagination. It's also because it's beyond imagination that the backlash is even more terrifying. I can basically confirm that the only target of this backlash is the Demon Emperor who presided over the apocalyptic ploy. I'm the only one. I boast that I know everything about the apocalyptic ploy. The only thing I don't know about is this backlash. I've gone through all the arrangements and records regarding the apocalyptic ploy countless times, but I've never seen the existence of the backlash. Yunyang smiled. Your Majesty is mistaken. This is actually the most logical explanation. If you've known about this backlash with your Majesty's character, why would you even think of using it? Your Majesty cherishes your life very much. Listening to Yunyang's blatant mockery, the 5 Dragon Elders glared at him. The Spirit Demon Emperor, on the other hand, remained calm and unperturbed as he continued, This apocalyptic ploy, we've been studying it since 10,000 years ago. The Spirit Demon Emperor paused and continued in a tone that was utterly chilling. However, 10,000 years ago, or perhaps even longer, when the Phoenix Emperor proposed the apocalyptic ploy, he presented it to me, or rather, all the information related to the apocalyptic ploy that I could get my hands on, was altered. No, he only deleted the part about the backlash. As long as the backlash doesn't exist in the records, of course, I'll actively work on this matter. Yunyang continued, the person who is the best at lying actually rarely lies. Almost every word he says is true. It's only when he needs to, at the most crucial moment, that a lie or half a sentence is enough to complete the plot. If it wasn't for the Phoenix Emperor's scheming, Your Majesty wouldn't have used the identity of the Spirit Demon Emperor to carry out the apocalyptic ploy and end up in this state. People like you who are used to scheming have dirty hearts and can understand each other's schemes the best. But no matter what, the Phoenix Emperor has already set up this plot. It's been set up too early. When he said the last 3 words, the Spirit Demon Emperor was practically gritting his teeth, squeezing them out through the gaps between his teeth. The 5 great elders of the Dragon Clan looked at each other in shock. They did not expect to witness such a secret when they were dragged in by the Dragon Emperor today. The 5 great elders were all important members of the Dragon Clan and the Spirit Demon Emperor's trusted subordinates. Of course, they knew when the apocalyptic ploy had started. Thinking about it, all of them sucked in a cold breath in unison, shuddering in fear. If the plot had already started from that time, how cunning was the Phoenix Emperor? That was not something that could only be described as a heart. That heart was clearly black, completely black. No, the plot didn't start from that time. The Spirit Demon Emperor thought about it and said, it should be even earlier. His gaze pierced through the void in front of him, looking into the distance. In the distance, some scenes appeared as the Spirit Demon Emperor's gaze was focused. The quiet grassland should have been the backyard of the leaders of the various clans at that time. At that time, the rulers of the various clans of the Demon Clan had gathered on this grassland. This grassland was the sacred land of the entire Demon Clan, the field of celestial demons. In front of everyone, a small dragon, a small phoenix, a small tiger, a small fox, a small horse, a small deer and a small eagle appeared. They were all playing and playing happily. There was no separation between them, only harmony. The Spirit Demon Emperor pointed. That's me, that's the Phoenix Emperor, that's the Fox Emperor, that's the Bear Emperor. At that time, our fathers were around. We often played together almost every day. We had a good relationship since we were young. It was probably an opportunity that our fathers deliberately created for us to grow and become stronger together. We were always close, not brothers but closer than brothers. Even if we became the rulers of our own clans in the future, there would still be no barriers between us. It was more convenient for us to create a bright future for the Demon Clan together. In order for us young ones to be together, most of our fathers abandoned the territories that were originally suitable for them to live in and gathered on this field of celestial demons. And we didn't disappoint them. We grew up day by day. Among them, I was the oldest and I was also the strongest. However, at that time the title of boss was just a title I gave myself. I was only the strongest in terms of battle prowess and could suppress everyone else. I've been a stubborn and arrogant child since I was young. In addition, I was used to being domineering, so naturally I was ostracized by others. Almost no one liked me. Everyone liked to be close to the nine-tailed white fox and the Phoenix Emperor. The Spirit Demon Emperor's face was filled with melancholy as he reminisced. From the constantly changing scenery, Yunyang saw the little dragons and phoenixes quarreling, fighting, forming small groups and fighting each other, but they were also growing up. Finally the scene stopped. At this time, the future emperors had already transformed into their human forms. At this time, our fathers and the rest were actually very old. Look at the Battle of the Crimson Soul Mountain today, it's already very tragic, but you don't know that the war between the two clans back then was the real tragedy. Our fathers were all severely injured in the Crimson Soul War back then and didn't have long to live. Therefore, many of the major and minor matters in the clan were already decided by us. Our forefathers have given us a deadline. Within 5,000 years, we have to choose the real demon king from this group of little brothers. To lead all the clans of the demon race. The demon race needs a common leader. It was also from then on that our group of brothers changed from a small quarrel to a competitive relationship. Soon we were divided into 3 groups. The flying clans mostly supported the Phoenix Emperor. The land beasts worshipped the nine-tailed white fox as their leader. Nine-tailed white is the leader. There's also a portion that treats Emperor Rock, who refuses to submit to the Phoenix Emperor, as their leader. They formed their own faction. The Spirit Demon Emperor murmured. The corners of Yunyang's lips twitched as he listened. What about you? The Spirit Demon Emperor's expression was a little embarrassed and resentful. Back then, I was only the leader of a group of young brothers in the dragon race. I won it with my fists and didn't have much credibility. Therefore, no one from the other clans acknowledged me. Yunyang coughed, feeling that it was so ridiculous that he forgot to retort. The current Spirit Demon Emperor, the Spirit Demon Emperor who commanded all the demons in the world, was actually alone during the competition for the Spirit Demon Emperor position. He did not even have a supporter. Who would believe this? It had to be said that this matter was rather bizarre. The 5 dragon elders' expressions were similar to Yunyang's. 3 of them had personally experienced the incident back then. Their expressions were even more sorrowful now. That was the situation back then. No matter who the Spirit Demon Emperor was, it was never my turn to be the Spirit Demon Emperor. I had never thought of becoming the Spirit Demon Emperor back then. Everyone is holding back their energy to compete with the other teams. 4,000 years have passed in a hurry. Everyone has reached the beginner stage of the Sage Realm, but no one can suppress the others and take the lead. But at that time, everyone already knew in their hearts that the Phoenix Empress was not weaker than me. She was improving rapidly and her mind was nimble. She was calculative and farsighted. Everyone felt that if the next demon sovereign was the Phoenix Empress, she would definitely continue her glory. The nine-tailed white fox was intelligent and thoughtful. He took one step forward and looked ahead 3 steps ahead. If he were to be the spirit demon emperor, there would be a new atmosphere. Our generation was considered by our fathers to be the most outstanding generation in history. My father once said that if this generation didn't achieve great things, the demon race would truly have no hope. He even warned me many times that no matter who became the spirit demon emperor in the future, I must listen to him. The more Yunyang listened, the more ridiculous he felt. Did this not mean that the spirit demon emperor back then could not possibly become the spirit demon emperor? There was not even a possibility. Could there have been some sort of shady deal that caused such a change? In spite of this, Yunyang dared not say it out loud like before. After all, it was easier said than done. Even if the spirit demon emperor could not do it due to his physical condition, the other dragon elders might not be able to hold themselves back. It was about 5,000 years. When the last 1,000 years began, I had completely given up then. I was only waiting for the time when I pledged my loyalty to the new spirit demon emperor. The Phoenix Emperor suddenly came to me. He brought the Phoenix clan and all the flying tribes that followed him to find me, saying that he wanted to support me as the leader. He had been extremely respectful to me since the first time he saw me, prostrating himself before me. There was a trace of disbelief on the spirit demon emperor's face as well. Obviously, Long Yutian's expression back then should have been even more surprised than he was now. Yunyang was even more surprised. What the heck was this? I thought it was already ridiculous that it was a shady deal, but this was even more ridiculous. It was actually a younger brother who came to find me and prostrated himself, and he even brought all his subordinates to pledge his allegiance. This was too fantastical. It looks like Supreme Cloud was surprised too. Not only was Supreme Cloud surprised, I was the same. I laughed when he acknowledged me. Both of us had fought so many times before, neither of us was willing to submit to the other. Why did he suddenly acknowledge me? He had always looked down on me. However, the truth was right before our eyes. It felt great that this younger brother brought all his assets to pledge his allegiance. I was very excited too, and I had no reason to reject him. Especially when the Phoenix Emperor mentioned so many benefits that I could only have as the Spirit Demon Emperor. I had so many strengths. I'm afraid even I can't say how many strengths I actually have. In the end, the Phoenix Emperor pointed out that perhaps I wasn't a good friend or a good brother, but as a ruler, as the Spirit Demon Emperor, I was the most qualified and most suitable. Therefore he supported me. For the sake of the demon race's great cause, this sacrifice was necessary. Then he found Emperor Rock's group and told Emperor Rock that since neither of us were willing to submit to the other and both of us objected to the other becoming the Spirit Demon Emperor, it was better to fight to the end. In the end, neither of us would be able to sit in this position. If we were to continue the internal conflict, it would only damage the demon race's foundation. If that was the case, then we might as well not do it. Then Emperor Rock agreed. Just like that, the three of us gathered as one. Our momentum was unprecedented, completely suppressing Nine-Tailed White's group. Nine-Tailed White's group saw that the situation was hopeless, so they gave up the fight. It was also because of this that I naturally became everyone's boss. From the most marginalized person, I became everyone's boss. The Demon Emperor's face was still filled with confusion as he said, "The 5,000 years time limit was up." We gathered together, with me as the leader, to pay our respects to our fathers, saying that we've elected the publicly acknowledged Demon Emperor. When I stood up and my brothers saluted me, I clearly remember that all of our fathers were stunned. They were drinking then, and many of them even spilled their wine. Everyone was dumbfounded and in disbelief. Even my biological father, the Dragon Emperor at that time, fell from his chair to the ground. He kept asking us if we were putting on an act to fool them. Yunyang could imagine the scene. If he had been the person involved, he might not have felt any better. A person who was publicly acknowledged to be the most impossible had been elected as the Demon Emperor. How absurd was this? The Demon Emperor let out a long sigh. It was only today that I understood what this was. I was actually just a scapegoat that the Phoenix Monarch had found. I was a puppet that trusted him completely, and had no intention of guarding against him at all. I was completely controlled by him. The Phoenix Emperor knows that no matter if it's Nine-Tailed White or the Rock Emperor, he won't be able to control either of them if they become Demon Emperors. I'm the only one who's foolish enough to believe whatever he says. On the premise that he can't become Demon Emperor and needs to avoid the backlash of the apocalyptic ploy, only I, who listens to his suggestions, can succeed as Demon Emperor. To accomplish his great cause. Now that I think about it, I can almost say that he had already calculated today's situation since then. Other than me, even if Emperor Rock were to become the Demon Emperor, the Phoenix Emperor wouldn't be able to control him. He's calculated my personality to the core. How scheming, how forbearing, how terrifying. I'm utterly convinced by his plotting. I'm extremely impressed. I'm convinced. Yun Yang sighed emotionally. Thinking of the Phoenix Emperor's series of plans, even though he had always been known as the Wise One and Supreme Wit, he still felt chills down his spine when he recalled all of the Phoenix Emperor's plans. A plan, an ultimate goal that had been laid out for tens of thousands of years. Since the Demon League had been established, everyone was well equipped. Naturally, everyone started to wage war and unify the demon race. Actually, at that time, the Demon Realm's demon plane was filled with heroes. Many tribes had their own leaders. Our fathers still had the title of Demon Emperor, but we didn't have actual authority. For example, the Green Dragon and Black Dragon lineages of our race were outside of the Demon League, not listening to orders. We fought and conquered them one by one. At first, we targeted the Green Dragon and Black Dragon lineages. The dragon race was the first to assert its authority without any restraints. It was probably then that I began to be obsessed with power and had 120% faith in the Phoenix Emperor. One day after many years, the entire demon plane was finally unified. I truly became the ruler of the demon race, the ruler of all races. It was also then that our fathers passed away one by one. They saw with their own eyes that we'd unified the demon race. They left very contented, very happy, very relieved. Before my father died, he held my hand and said, "Little God, I've always thought that you wouldn't be able to achieve anything great, but I didn't expect that out of all my sons, the one who was the most promising and accomplished the greatest thing was actually you." I was very happy, very surprised. Father passed away with a smile. The expression on the Demon Emperor's face was indescribable. If he knew now that his son had been played by the Phoenix Emperor like a fool for so long and so thoroughly, I wonder how he would feel. The memories of the Demon Emperor in front of him began to flow again, constantly changing the scenes. However, neither Yun Yang nor the 5 great elders of the Dragon Clan were in the mood to watch these images. Their entire minds were immersed in the Demon Emperor's narration, enveloped in an inexplicable chill. Until all of the older generation have passed away, the Demon Emperor looked despondent as he said, "We began to divide the territories. The Phoenix Emperor suggested that we're all rulers of our respective races, the rulers of our own races. We're no longer children. It's not appropriate for us to gather together again. It's easy to cause trouble if we're too far away from our own races. Therefore it's time for us to enjoy the world." Everyone thought that this made sense, so from then on, everyone separated and no longer gathered together. After that, the wolf race, which was the most famous among the fortune-tellers, suddenly erupted in rebellion for some reason. The Wolf Emperor was killed in the chaos, then the army was mobilized and swiftly pacified the internal strife of the wolf race. However, the wolf race couldn't avoid disappearing from the demon race. After that, the peacock race, which could predict the future, also met with a problem. This went on for tens of thousands of years. Many races experienced various kinds of disturbances before their entire race was wiped out. Back then, the Nine-Tailed White, the Nine Lives Cat, and the Nine Lives Cat's military advisor, Bai Yi, felt that there might be a reason for so many races to be wiped out one after another. They came to me to tell me about this, saying that there might be some unknown bad news. Most of the races that disappeared had some innate abilities like being able to see the future, predict the future, or predict the future, or predict the future. Especially with the extinction of these clans, many of the records and ancient books left behind by these clans have also disappeared without a trace. There was another time, the Dragon Clan's secret grounds, treasure vaults, and warehouses. Wait a minute, a dozen secret places where things were stored as well as... There was a fire that burned out of nowhere, and all the historical sites were burned to the ground. The Fox Emperor was the first to feel that something was wrong. It was too strange. So he came to me and asked, "Is there a conspiracy to destroy the demon race's legacy?" There were many strange things in this, and the Nine-Tailed White asked me to be careful of the people around me. But why would I care about this at that time? I called the Phoenix Emperor over to discuss it. We discussed for a long time, but there was no progress. However, the Phoenix Emperor suggested that in order to prevent the legacy from being lost, the major races should send the ancient books to the Demon Palace. It would be easy to preserve them so that they wouldn't do it properly. Moreover, the Phoenix Emperor suggested that in order to avoid being led astray again, he was willing to take charge of this matter. Why would I care about such small matters? This matter was naturally given to the Phoenix Emperor to take charge of. This matter went on for a full 10 years. The ancient books of the various races were all sent to the Demon Palace. And that strange thing never happened again. The nine-tailed white was also relieved and said to me at that time, "Your Majesty, our brothers are all outside, and now that the world has been settled, we should be of one heart and one mind, and work together for the great cause." Now, the most taboo thing is for the general to be slandered when he is outside. He made me pay attention. But at that time I felt that I was wise and mighty, far ahead of my ancestors. How would I listen to him? And after that, about a few years later, there was suddenly a rumor that the son of the nine-tailed white, the nine-tailed jade, had the appearance of being the common lord of the demon clan, and would replace him in the future. The rumor was very true. Moreover, the son of the nine-tailed white did indeed have the extraordinary aura that the nine-tailed white had when she was young. I was very angry about this. Was that the heart of a disloyal subject? The Phoenix Emperor suggested that as long as the Fox clan stayed away from the center of the demon realm, it would be fine, so I sent the nine-tailed white's Fox clan away from the Fox clan's fief, and stationed at the foot of the Blood Soul Mountain. I believe that from then on, the nine-tailed white began to be disappointed in me. Then there was the matter of the Nine Lives Cat's military advisor, White Shirt, was suddenly tortured to death by my son. I remember that I was very angry at that time. We were all old brothers, and that White Shirt was even one of the three great sages of the demon realm, as well as the Phoenix Emperor and the nine-tailed white. How could he have died in such a tragic way? Especially since there were too many puzzling things about it. Not to mention other things just based on his cultivation, wit, and methods, he was not someone that my son could control in any aspect. How could he be captured without putting up a fight and finally be tortured to death? I believed that he had countless ways to solve that crisis. Yet he died so carelessly. I didn't have time to investigate before the Nine Lives Cat went crazy. He slaughtered my palace and killed my crown prince. The demon emperor sighed deeply. Thus, the Nine Lives Cat was imprisoned by me. For the first time, we brothers had a complete falling out. It was probably from then on that the Phoenix Emperor suddenly proposed the strategy of world annihilation. The Phoenix Emperor repeatedly expressed that all the arrangements now were useless. We should activate the strategy of world annihilation and sacrifice billions of demonic spirits in exchange for boundless power, using the most direct method to break through the Blood Soul Mountain and march into the bound of universe. He even brought out all the records regarding the strategy of world annihilation. A chill ran down Yun Yang's spine. He could only feel a chill creeping up his spine. This was a step-by-step scheme. Now, it seemed that the Demon Emperor was muddle-headed. However, even if it was another Demon Emperor, could the Phoenix Emperor really not succeed? This chapter of 7,400 could be considered an outburst. He did not unravel it because the entire scheme would not look good if it was unraveled. That was why he had waited until now to write it. However, he really could not take it anymore. It was too late today and the ghost would have to sleep until the afternoon tomorrow. If I'm not in a good condition tomorrow, I'll take a break and inform everyone in advance. Chapter 15:11. If I persevere, even if I don't write 9,000, I can still write 5,000 to 6,000. But I don't dare to stay up late anymore. My wife is joking with me. You're so timid now. You look like you're afraid of death. But I'm filled with emotions. There's an indescribable feeling. Indeed, when I was young, I just had to give it my all and do my best. I once posted a chapter saying, "Everyone has one life and only one life. When others don't dare to fight, I will." What? Because I have no way out. If I fight to my death, I'll be on the news. If I don't fight to my death, we'll live a good life. I've been writing for 10 years and I've been pulling all-nighters for 5 of those years. Now, I really don't dare to do it anymore. The book has reached the last plot. I don't ask for too much detail in my writing. But, please allow me to finish writing while taking care of my body. Sorry, brothers. I'm taking a day off for I Am the Supreme. I won't stay up late today. I'm typing. Please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 15:12. Executing the apocalyptic strategy would easily result in the death of billions of lives. It's too cruel. Even as a demon emperor, I don't wish for so many people to die at once. However, when I wanted to discuss it with my brothers, I was shocked to realize that I've not been in contact with them for a long time. I've offended many of my brothers inadvertently. For example, the Rock Emperor. It was just a small matter, but I felt offended and chased him out of Demon Imperial City with cold words. The Tiger Emperor came to explain for the Cat Emperor, but I vented my anger on him, accusing him of colluding with the tiger and the cat, saying that he could no longer enter Demon Imperial City if he wasn't summoned. I scolded him on the spot. The Eagle Emperor came to explain for the Nine-Tailed White, but I scolded him and he left without looking back. As for those brothers with special abilities, they've long disappeared. Then I had a bunch of things. For a long time, everyone thought that I was afraid of the 9 lives, so I didn't mention it. They didn't know that this has always been the thing that puzzled me. How could such a thing happen? Every night I dream about it. Bai Yi is one of the 3 wise men of the demon race and was once the military advisor of millions of troops. How could he have a conflict with my son for no reason? Although my son is immature, he has always kept a respectful distance from elders like Bai Yi, not daring to provoke them. How could he have done such a crazy thing? How could my son not know Bai Yi's daughter and daughter-in-law? They've always gathered together, so why didn't this happen before? The bizarre turn of events, the bizarre deaths. And then there's the sudden outburst of thunderous rage from the 9 lives. They didn't ask what was right or wrong, and then slaughtered their way into the imperial palace. Yun Yang interrupted, "Since your majesty already has doubts, why didn't you investigate it?" The spirit demon emperor nodded his head but then shook his head. "How is it that I have never thought of investigating clearly, but when I wanted to investigate I then remembered that the Xiao Huan who was famous for its divination and the peacock who predicted the future had already been extinct for a long time. At that moment I was unable to find out where to start. In addition, I had the mentality of being the leader of the spirit demon race, and always felt that I was the emperor. Even if the emperor was in the wrong as an official, I should not leave any leeway and reprimand him for his wrongdoings. Also, the Phoenix Monarch has always been investigating this matter. He once told me that he suspects that there's something fishy going on. He has never given up on the investigation. With the wisest person, the Phoenix Monarch, investigating this matter, I am naturally at ease." At this time, 2 streams of tears flowed down from the demon sovereign's eyes. "Back then, when I became the leader of the demon clan, I made a solemn promise to all my brothers that we will share weal and woe together, never forsake each other, so it was I who forgot the promise that year. This is karma, karma, karma. After the repeated failures in the Crimson Soul Mountain. Basically, for every failure the Phoenix Monarch would bring it up again and again and again. My patience grew thin. However, about 10,000 years ago, the Condor Emperor of the Condor clan presented a plan. It was to capture the Bound of Universe's human martial artists and absorb the chi of vitality of the human race to extract the Bound of Universe's providence. Although it would take a long time, it would be enough to destroy the Bound of Universe's barrier. I know that the Phoenix Monarch has made similar arrangements. Therefore, I asked the Phoenix Monarch to carry out this plan first. As long as it doesn't require the sacrifice of billions of people, it's acceptable to expend other resources and time. The Phoenix Monarch did not obstruct this plan like before and agreed readily. Under my suggestion, the Phoenix Monarch offered some of the results that he had already achieved. However, not long after that, the Condor Emperor's clan rebelled and even his clan, the Condor clan, was annihilated by the army. The spirit demon sovereign sighed sadly. Yun Yang gritted his teeth as he listened. "All these years, you've never noticed the Phoenix Monarch's disloyalty?" Yun Yang blurted out in surprise. How slow could this spirit demon sovereign be? His wings had been wiped clean and he had been deserted by his people, yet he was still so high and mighty that he did not notice it? No. The spirit demon sovereign chuckled self-deprecatingly. "Even when our opinions differ, the Phoenix Monarch will not quarrel with me or fight with me. He will give me face, even though he will always find a chance to persuade me after the matter is over, to let me know that what he said makes sense and to preserve my dignity. Isn't this how a good brother should behave?" The corners of Yun Yang's lips twitched, speechless for a moment. When their opinions were the same, they would act on it immediately. When their opinions were different, they would wait for him to persuade them and then act according to the Phoenix Monarch's wishes. If that was the case, everything was the Phoenix Monarch's will. Then, after so many years, what kind of spirit demon sovereign are you? You're really a puppet. Even the most severe henpecked husband that I've seen isn't as severe as you. Could it be the legendary henpecked husband? Or perhaps he was a henpecked husband. However, even if he was henpecked, he knew that he was a henpecked husband. Yet, the spirit demon sovereign did not know about it. That was impressive. The spirit demon sovereign looked awkward as he explained reluctantly, "The Phoenix Monarch is usually very respectful to me and gives me face. His attitude is very good, cough cough." Yin Yang was speechless. "Haha. He made you the spirit demon sovereign, but he also made you a loner. Everything is done according to his instructions and he doesn't have to bear any responsibility. Everything goes according to his wishes. If it were me, I'd be happy too. What's so strange about having a good attitude? Occasionally, a Condor Emperor would offer you a plan without understanding the situation and his clan would be annihilated. Those with special abilities would be eliminated one by one. The wise ones of the demon clan would either be killed or banished. All in all, anyone who was a hindrance to the world annihilation strategy, a thorn in the side, or even someone who might obstruct the world annihilation strategy. Who else could you listen to other than me? However, the results of the Eagle Emperor's plan were too slow. Furthermore, it consumed too much manpower, resources, and money. It was probably from that time that the Eagle Emperor's plan was carried out. On the other hand, according to the Phoenix Emperor's words, the demon race began to carry out the Eagle Emperor's plan. Those who disobeyed or committed crimes were all arrested and awaited their execution. In reality, they were waiting for the world annihilation strategy. The spirit demon sovereign sighed deeply. Yin Yang wanted to laugh out loud. What kind of policy did the demon clan follow? The policy of the strong being the king. Arresting those who disobeyed and committed crimes? Then there wouldn't be many of the demon clan left who weren't arrested. The spirit demon sovereign's memory flashed through his mind. Speaking of the world annihilation strategy, we'll have to wait until Supreme Cloud causes trouble in the demon clan. The spirit demon sovereign looked at Yin Yang. Yin Yang rubbed his nose. Did this have anything to do with him? The soul-devouring trees that he had caused trouble for the demon clan? It seemed like he had caused a lot of trouble for the demon clan. Alright, I'll take the blame. What else can I do? Then, the world annihilation strategy was activated, according to the records. The spirit demon sovereign's expression was a little twisted. According to the records provided by the Phoenix Monarch, the spirit demon sovereign prayed to the heavens and the demonic forefather, willing to exchange his own safety for the prosperity of the demon clan. Yun Yang was surprised again. Ah, Your Majesty, you're just going to let it happen. Don't you feel that something's wrong? How clear was it? It was to exchange his own safety for the prosperity of the demon clan? It couldn't have been more explicit, could it? The spirit demon sovereign was embarrassed. I thought it was just a formality then. I've said similar things countless times. Yun Yang was speechless. What he said made too much sense. He actually had nothing to say. Back then, His Majesty the old Emperor of Yutong had almost always said that he was willing to exchange his own safety for the country's stability. Therefore, it was natural for those in power to say such empty words. How could he have known that it was for real this time? Saying that he was going to exchange his own safety for the prosperity of the demon clan meant that he was really going to die. Only now do I understand. All of the Phoenix Monarch's plans are to pave the way and prepare for the world annihilation strategy. The spirit demon sovereign said sadly, my mind is clear now. If my guess is correct, after the world annihilation strategy is activated, there will only be one beneficiary, and this beneficiary can only be the Phoenix Monarch. Perhaps he has a way to extract the power of the world annihilation strategy for his own use? Yun Yang was speechless. It had already come to this and there was still a, perhaps? That was for sure. At the same time, there will also be one who will suffer the backlash and be annihilated. If not for me, I believe the Phoenix Monarch wouldn't have dared to go all the way. He knows that this boundless power is beyond the endurance of anyone in this world. No one will be able to withstand it. However, with me acting as a sucker, the Phoenix Monarch will be able to sit back and relax and she can simply accept the benefits. This benefit is absolutely not limited to the destruction of the Blood Soul Mountain. There will definitely be great benefits to the Phoenix itself. Yun Yang and the few dragon saints nodded silently. White Dragon Great Elder said bitterly, the Phoenix Monarch's current power is already invincible in this world. Although the power he has displayed seems to be full of loopholes, it has actually exceeded the limits of this world. It is the legendary ultimate power, unstoppable. The spirit demon sovereign looked up at the sky, speechless for a long time. After a while he said softly, the Phoenix Monarch's greatest wish in this life is to find the Phoenix clan's long-lost orthodox legacy, to transcend this world and become a true Phoenix. This is the highest secret of the demon clan. The Dragon clan and the Phoenix clan are both descendants of the divine beasts. Our two clans have always been proud of this. But now, the Dragon clan and the Phoenix clan have insulted the name of the divine beasts. They are no different from the ordinary demon clan. It's just that their physical bodies are a little stronger and their talents are a little stronger. The Phoenix clan's Nirvana fire is said to be able to burn anything and has great power, but in fact, it has not reached the pinnacle of purity. The reason is that it lacks the true core legacy. In other words, the current Dragon Clan and the Phoenix Clan are basically the bloodlines that have been truly banished or abandoned by the divine beasts of the Dragon Clan and the Phoenix Clan. And the Phoenix Monarch has always wanted to restore his identity as a member of the Phoenix Clan, wanting to return to the real clan. He has told me this wish more than 1,000 times. Chapter 15:13. In fact, it's not just the Dragon and Phoenix bloodlines. The Rock Emperor's bloodline has similar ancient records as well. We're all exiled, our bloodlines sealed, the Demon Emperor said. Only by surpassing the limits of this world and roaming the starry sky will there be a chance to return to the clan. This is also the power of extreme heaven that Elder White Dragon mentioned just now. Its power is beyond this world. Yunyang sucked in a deep breath. Yunyang knew more about the ultimate divine power than the Demon Emperor. When Aunt May appeared in the Tianxin continent, she had mentioned this ultimate divine power. When Shangguan Lingxiu learned from Aunt May's husband had given a detailed description of this. This power did not only refer to the limit of a certain world or era. For example, if the Bound of Universe's pinnacle experts appeared in the Tianxin continent and wanted to destroy it, they could do it with a wave of their hands. They could also be like Yunyang, restraining their power and doing things calmly. This was a manifestation of the ultimate divine power. However, Yunyang was strong in the Tianxin continent, but he was still not strong enough. Only someone as strong as Auntie May, who could only stay there for a short period of time even when he had retracted his aura, would be considered strong enough. Even in the Bound of Universe, he could destroy it with a wave of his hand. He was almost at the level of the monarch of Bloody Soul Mountain. Although the Phoenix Emperor had obtained great benefits from the World Annihilation strategy, most of the power of the World Annihilation strategy had been used to destroy the monarch of the Blood Soul Mountain. The portion that was given to the Phoenix Emperor was relatively limited. Although it was enough for the Phoenix Emperor to break through her original limits and even improve greatly, it was not enough for her to completely dominate the world. The Phoenix Emperor obviously knows the true secret of the strategy of world annihilation, the pros and cons. The Demon Emperor turned his head abruptly. So, he's plotted for so many years. He doesn't want to be the Demon Emperor because the real sacrifice of the strategy of world annihilation is the Demon Emperor himself. He wants power, but he can't do it without power. He's lied to me all my life, used me all my life, and in the end, I died because of his plan. This is an irreconcilable blood feud. Supreme Cloud Elders, I know I'm going to die. But I beg you, kill the Phoenix Emperor. The expression on the Demon Emperor's face was indescribable. It wasn't anger, it wasn't despair, and it wasn't dispirited. He said that he hated the Phoenix Empress, but when he mentioned the Phoenix Empress, there was still a complicated look in his eyes. It seemed that his brother was still by his side, giving him advice and suggestions. Memories constantly flashed before his eyes. The little dragon and little phoenix gradually grew up and became two kings, standing at the peak of the entire demon race. Bit by bit, they betrayed the pain in his heart. He was the most trusted, the closest, and he thought that he was the best friend in this world. However, the other party did not take him seriously at all. His only use was to be a scapegoat. Every bit of growth was pushing him one step further on the path of a puppet. In the end, it was completely fixed. The Demon Emperor murmured to himself, I trusted him, loved him, respected him, and did everything I could to cooperate with him. Until today, in this lifetime, I've always thought of him as my best friend, my best brother. But he used me, deceived me, toyed with me, and trampled on my emotions. He treated me like a fool, a tool for the rest of his life. He used me to achieve all of his goals. He made the apocalyptic strategy backfire and drained all of my life force. He drained my essence, my soul, everything I had, everything in this life and in the future, all of it. I won't have a future, I won't have an afterlife. If we don't meet today, it'll be an eternal farewell. We'll never see each other again. The Demon Emperor sighed. I've been tricked by him for so long. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that I've been tricked the most in history, but I'm extremely impressed by his intelligence and resourcefulness. I have nothing to say. However, the more scheming he is, the more ingenious his schemes are, and the more determined he is, the more I hate him. The Demon Emperor's expression kept changing. He sighed and gritted his teeth at times. His emotions were fluctuating, almost indescribable with words. Yunyang did not mock him anymore. It was not that it was useful or that he could not bear to do it, but Yunyang asked himself a question. If he had been tricked by a brother, he acknowledged, Even with Yun Yang's composure, he could not help but feel a chill run down his spine. Whether it was himself or anyone else, when the truth was finally revealed, there was no other way or time to salvage the situation. Their emotions would not be any better than the demon emperor's. I've also thought about the future of the demon race and the human race. The demon emperor suddenly changed the topic. Yun Yang was bewildered. He had long given up on the demon emperor's intelligence. You, a fool who had been toyed with for tens of thousands of years, almost your entire life, can actually think about the future of the human race and the demon race? Why don't you save it? The demon emperor wore a strange expression on his face as he said in a low voice, "The battle outside is still going on. No matter what, billions of lives will be lost in this war. No matter how many people are killed or how many demons are killed after a war, be it the demon race or the human race, it's inevitable that they'll suffer a great loss of strength. Even if the demon race can invade the bound of universe, the process of conquest will be a long one. It might even be a never-ending, chaotic mess." The demon emperor's tone gradually turned gloomy as he said with an unconcealable tiredness, "If this chaotic mess continues, the outcome of the future will definitely end with the annihilation of one of the parties. The demon race and the human race, with this apocalyptic strategy as the starting point, will never be able to coexist peacefully." Yin Yang had to admit this. That was the truth. Once the demon race and the sea race crossed the final barrier that they had erected and brought the power of the demon race into the bound of universe, the two sides would be irreconcilable enemies. They would not be able to coexist and could only end with the complete annihilation of one side. Whether it was the demon race's retreat or the human race's plea for peace, it was unrealistic. The fundamental reason why the two races could not coexist peacefully was very simple. The simplest and most direct way for two races that were originally incompatible to coexist was to intermarry, achieving a state of mutual benefit. Only then could they develop together. As for the demon race and the human race, other than being physically different, they had a feud that was difficult to coexist. There was no possibility of intermarriage at all. Even if the demon race with a high cultivation base could transform into a human, their original form could not be changed. It was difficult to determine whether the legend of fox spirits and carp spirits turning into humans and marrying each other was true in other worlds, but in the bound of universe, it was absolute nonsense. Of course, if you insisted on shedding your demon body after undergoing the 1,000 tribulations refinement to become a real human being, that would be another matter entirely. However, there had never been anyone in the bound of universe who could truly reach such a state. Yun Yang had other plans for this. The fox race and the cat race could not tolerate the demon race and they were already extremely weak. Yun Yang had taken them in, allowed them to recuperate and given them a certain living space. To a large extent, it was because of Yun Yang's control over the Nine Supremes Palace and Yun Yang's importance to the bound of universe that he could make an exception and allow humans and demons to coexist. When he reached an agreement with Emperor Rock and the others, there were also faint signs of human and demon coexisting. However, this coexistence required two major prerequisites. First, the situation of both sides had to be that the humans were stronger and the demons were weaker. The humans had to take the initiative in the war. Second, it was the ultimate battle between the two races on the Blood Soul Mountain. If the humans won, they would also severely injure the dragon race and phoenix race so that the two races would no longer have absolute authority over the demon race as a whole. These two aspects were indispensable. Without either of them, it would be impossible to talk about the future. However, in this situation, the ultimate battle on the Blood Soul Mountain had begun. From the beginning, the humans had fallen into an absolute disadvantage. How could they still have the thought of coexisting peacefully? Also, the demon race's development was too fast. A 2-year-old human couldn't even walk steadily. A 2-year-old demon of the tiger race could already summon the wind and rain. How could they compare? Back then, the existence of the Blood Soul Mountain was an appropriate solution for the humans, but it wasn't the best one, the Demon Emperor said. If we can make the Blood Soul Mountain a little taller, a little bigger, and a little sturdier, we can make the demon race or the humans despair completely. Only then can we say that we can live in peace and never have a war. Yin Yang chuckled. That's impossible. It's not a good thing for the demon race or the human race if we really lose the pressure. I've long planned for this. If the demon race wins, I'll only be busy with the human race's counterattack. However, if the humans win, there will naturally be a new method. I'm confident that it will be more effective than the Blood Soul Mountain of the past. The Demon Emperor asked curiously, "May I ask what method it is? I'm willing to listen to Supreme Cloud's advice." Then he reacted quickly and chuckled. I wanted to provide you with a feasible direction, and this method is the price of a deal for you to help me. I didn't expect Supreme Cloud to already have a solution. Then I won't say anything more. He thought about it for a long time and said, other than the divine ocean staff, I have nothing else to exchange for. The 5 dragon elders felt an inexplicable sense of sadness when they heard this. The demon emperor, the leader of the demon race, could not even come up with the so-called exchange for someone else's help at this critical moment. No wonder he would consider the future of the human race and the demon race. This was the demon emperor looking for some last bargaining chip for his pride. It was a pity that his brain was not made for such considerations. Yun Yang said seriously, Your Majesty, please don't worry about the so-called exchange price. Even if we didn't come to any agreement, I still have to kill the Phoenix Emperor. He's not just Your Majesty's personal enemy now, but the entire bound of universe's public enemy. As long as there's a way to deal with him, I won't allow him to live. The demon emperor chuckled bitterly. No, you don't understand what I mean. I'm thinking, if I'm the one who entrusted this task to you and I've paid a sufficient price, then, when you kill him, you can treat it as if he died because of my entrustment. My resentment towards this chi has reached its peak. If I don't do anything, I won't be able to die in peace. Even if he's the world's public enemy and not my personal enemy, if he dies in your hands after I entrusted him to me, it'll be different from dying in your hands normally. At least it'll be different for me. The demon emperor's gaze turned melancholic as he stared at the scene in front of him. He murmured, I don't have much time left. He said as if he was talking in his sleep, the 5 of you, including the dragon race, if you're willing to avenge me after I'm gone, follow Supreme Cloud. If not, if you're willing to follow the Phoenix Emperor, it's up to you. Thinking back on the past, I've actually forced all of you your entire lives. Now, I don't want to force you anymore. Consider this a little repentance from someone who's about to die. The 5 elders' voices were choked. Your Majesty, the demon emperor smiled faintly and waved his hand to stop them from speaking. He said softly, It's only now that I'm here that I've suddenly realized that my happiest days were actually those times. No one was willing to be with me. I was the only one who was arrogant but had no ambition. It seemed lonely, but it was true freedom, true self. After those days ended, I was deceived and willingly became a puppet. I've been proud of myself for so many years. Now that I'm about to vanish, I've suddenly realized. In the past, the days when no one deceived you like this were the truly good days, the days when you were happy and comfortable. If someone kept you in the dark, then you'd only be a puppet at the mercy of others, even if you'd achieved unparalleled success and supreme authority. I don't want to go out, I don't want to step on the stairway to heaven anymore. With a wave of his hand, the divine staff of ocean suppression appeared in the demon emperor's hand. He turned sideways and passed it to Yin Yang. Without looking at him, he said, Supreme Cloud, please take care of the Phoenix Emperor. Whether you can do it or not, this is what I've entrusted to you. All of you leave. The demon emperor smiled in the illusory realm. I'm leaving as well. I don't need anyone to accompany me on this last journey. Yun Yang, the great elder of the dragon clan, and the others could already feel the instability of the illusory realm. It was obvious that the demon emperor's demonic energy was reaching its limit. However, if the demon emperor did not leave, he would definitely vanish along with the illusory realm, becoming one with the world. The 5 elders knelt down at the same time, tears streaming down their cheeks. Your Majesty, we shall send you off. The demon emperor waved his hand and floated forward, murmuring to himself, Phoenix Emperor, I'll be waiting for you. As he floated forward, his body dissipated bit by bit. The illusory realm was crumbling and twisting as well. Within moments, half of it had already collapsed. Yun Yang and the 5 Dragon Clan elders felt their vision blur, and for a moment, they were out of the illusory realm. They had returned to the real battlefield once more. Around them, the Dragon Clan's stairway to heaven was still lined up neatly, obviously waiting for the Demon Emperor's return. The 5 elders' faces were filled with tears as they cried out in grief, His Majesty has passed away. Just as they spoke, the entire battlefield seemed to fall silent for a moment. The Demon Emperor of a generation, the world's strongest expert, had actually died so silently? All the Dragon Clan and all the demons felt as if they had been struck by lightning. They could not believe what their ears had just heard. In the distance there was a ripple in the air. The Phoenix Emperor, who had disappeared somewhere, had reappeared on the battlefield. However, his gaze was filled with indescribable complexity. Looking at the tall stairway to heaven and the empty throne, his eyes were glistening as he murmured, Your Majesty, the Black Dragon Elder turned his head abruptly and looked at the Phoenix Emperor. His eyes were suddenly filled with endless rage as he said coldly, "Your Majesty Phoenix Emperor. Do you know how His Majesty Demon Emperor died?" The Phoenix Emperor's expression was one of shock, while the other 4 elders looked at the Phoenix Emperor with widened eyes. The Phoenix Emperor stood high in the sky, giving off the feeling that he was at a loss and out of his wits. The Phoenix Emperor had never been someone who dared to do things in fear and avoid the truth. No matter what it was, he would face it proactively, face it head-on and solve it. Facing all difficulties head-on had always been the Phoenix Emperor's creed in life. There was nothing that he could not solve. This was the source of the Phoenix Emperor's absolute confidence. However, when it came to scheming against the Demon Emperor, the Phoenix Emperor had chosen to escape at the first instance. Back then, when the Demon Emperor had arrived on the battlefield and attacked Shangguan Lingxiu, he had expended what little vitality he had, causing him to feel that something was amiss. When he looked at the Phoenix Emperor, seeking an explanation and an answer, the Phoenix Emperor had escaped, which was rare. This was because he had seen the Demon Emperor's gaze then. Other than confusion, there was also panic and fear as well as a plea for help. He had hoped that his lifelong brother would think of a solution, find the cause and solve the problem for him. What was going on? The Demon Emperor had been confused and fearful then, but he had still trusted the Phoenix Emperor. If the Phoenix Emperor had still been able to maintain his composure then, returning to the Demon Emperor's side at once and coming up with a few acceptable reasons, such as the backlash from wielding the sea-suppressing divine staff, some forbidden skill cast by the human race, or even the possible existence of the strategy of annihilation that no one knew about, the Demon Emperor would have accepted it all. Even if he still had his doubts, he would have continued to trust the Phoenix Emperor because he was wary of the demon race's power. He would have even entrusted the demon race's affairs to the Phoenix Emperor when he was certain that he would die. Faced with such a gaze, the Phoenix Emperor's first thought was that he could not face it and had a mental breakdown. Therefore he had chosen to disappear, escaping without a trace. He wanted to avoid that gaze. Then, he had turned invisible in the air, observing the situation where the Demon Emperor's gaze could not reach. Every time the Demon Emperor asked, "Where's the Phoenix Emperor? Where's the Phoenix Emperor? Why isn't the Phoenix Emperor here yet?" He heard every single word. The Demon Emperor's voice, from trust, anticipation, to disappointment, to fear, to anger, to rage, and finally to hatred. The entire process was summed up by the Demon Emperor's clenched teeth. The more it was like this, the more the Phoenix Emperor did not dare to come out and face it. Yes, he had achieved his goal. He now had the foundation of a starry sky expert. As long as he digested these benefits, he would be able to break through the starry sky and travel the world, reaching the realm that he had always dreamed of. This world could no longer restrain him. But the Demon Emperor was dead. He had used the strategy of annihilation to soar into the sky. The Demon Emperor had been reduced to ashes because of the strategy of annihilation. It was a completely different ending, a world of difference. This ending was not surprising at all. Tens of thousands of years ago, the Phoenix Emperor had already thought of it. He had even looked forward to it for a long time and had imagined this scene too many times. But today he had truly seen the Demon Emperor, who he had used for his entire life but still trusted and close to him, fall under his ultimate goal. The Phoenix Emperor, who should have been prepared, could not help but feel a heart-wrenching pain. Faced with the Black Dragon Great Elder's interrogation, the Phoenix Emperor had nothing to say. Initially, he had too many excuses he could use to shirk his responsibility. With a few words, he could shift all the hatred onto the human race and onto Supreme Cloud. He could even accuse the 5 Dragon Elders of being traitors and colluding with Yun Yang to murder the Demon Emperor. This was a part of the plan, and the Phoenix Emperor had rehearsed it countless times in his heart. As long as he spoke, there would be no loopholes, no loopholes. Other than the 5 elders and a few of the Demon Emperor's loyal followers, the other demons would not doubt him. They would only trust him unconditionally. The Phoenix Emperor had this confidence. However, he could not say anything at this moment. It was easy to deceive others but difficult to deceive oneself. The hardest person to deceive in this world was himself. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.